Yay.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is a historic day if you love the world of politics, because in the nation's capital right now, on the floor of the House of Representatives, they are now taking a vote to decide whether or not they should kick Kevin McCarthy out as Speaker of the House. It hasn't happened since 1910 that there've ever been a vote like this. The last time was a guy by the name of Joe Cannon, who was a dictatorial kind of speaker of the day, and there was a move to vacate the chair then, and he survived it only because the other party voted to keep him in. He got support from the other party. That will not happen today. And as you listen in the background, the clerk of the House is now beginning a roll call vote. It's been going on for a few minutes. They have to actually do this with a roll call vote. All 435 names of the House of Representatives must be called. And so it's going to be a little while before we figure out. But this is the vote. If this vote to vacate the chair goes forward with enough yay votes, we will not have a Speaker of the House. Now, in the earlier vote, sort of the test vote, there was a measure, they said, well, let's put it up. And they said, well, let's try to table it. And they took a vote on tabling it. And the Speaker of the House did not have enough votes to stop the measure from going forward. There were about 10, 11 members of his own party who voted to kick him out. And that's enough in this House of Representatives right now, given the fact that, McCarthy only has about a 5-vote margin. He can't afford to lose more than 5 votes here and survive as Speaker. So it appears it's possible that in the next few minutes, the United States House of Representatives will be without a speaker. And then, well, if that is what happens, then nothing can go forward. Everything in the House comes to a screeching halt while they try to decide who is going to be the next speaker. So a lot on the line here for McCarthy, a lot on the line for the House of Representatives. A small band of conservatives led by Matt Gaetz, put us to this point now. And the vast majority of the Republican conference is still in support of McCarthy, but it doesn't matter if 5 people vote against him. And that's what we're waiting to find out at this very, very moment. Let me take you down a little bit of background of what has happened while this vote continues. It will take a while. I want to bring you some sound from earlier as McCarthy walked from his office to the House chambers earlier today and was stopped by reporters.
Still stand by the idea that you're going to be Speaker of the House tonight?
Yes. Look, I'm an optimist because I think there's no point of being anything else. I think this is a big honor to be able to be this. I think we've been very successful at different points. I just would not understand if there's a handful of Republicans who join Democrats who get to determine who's the Speaker of the House is. But it is what it is.
What about these Republicans who are opposed to you? I mean, what has gone on here? What do you think is their thinking? And
these are the same ones who opposed me before, and so they're turning the floor over to the Democrats.
And what does this say, the fact that you're the first speaker to face this since 1910? I know that Joe Cannon obviously moved this resolution on his own, but the fact that you're facing this, doesn't that say something about the speakership, or is that the narrow majority, or just the fact that you have some rambunctious...
no one thought about using it before until the Boehner part, and then Boehner didn't go through with me. I continue to work through it.
I know you don't like hypothetical questions, but if this goes to a speaker vote eventually, will you continue to stand for speaker vote after vote after vote?
Talk to me. We'll see what happens.
That doesn't sound like you're convinced.
And with that, he walked on down to the House chambers to watch the proceedings from the floor of the House. He has not spoken today on the floor, as far as I know. So then came the measure. Matt Gaetz stood and said, okay, I bring up my motion to vacate the chair. And then there was immediately a motion to table it.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Resolution 757, resolved that the office of the Speaker of the House of Representatives is hereby declared to be vacant.
The resolution qualifies as a question of the privileges of the House. For what purpose does the gentleman from Oklahoma seek recognition?
Motion to table at the desk.
The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Cole of Oklahoma moves to lay the resolution on the table.
The question is on the motion to lay the resolution on the table. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Gentlelady from Pennsylvania.
Yes, we would request the yeas and nays on this vote.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. Sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
And so that was the motion to table, which did not win. In other words, the motion to table did not survive, and that meant that we moved immediately to the motion to vacate the chair. And then there began an hour of debate. I'm going to give you a little sample of it. Here is Jim Jordan speaking on behalf of Speaker McCarthy.
We have passed the bills we told the American people we would pass. 87,000 IRS agents, that bill passed. Parents' Bill of Rights, that bill passed. Energy legislation passed. Border security, immigration enforcement legislation, the strongest bill ever to pass the Congress, passed earlier this year. We have done what we told them we were going to do. We can't help it the Senate won't take up those good common sense bills. They'll have to answer to the American people come Election Day. Oversight. We have done the oversight that we're supposed to do. Because of our oversight, we know that parents were targeted by the Department of Justice. Because of our oversight, we know that 51 former Intel officials misled the country weeks before the most important election we have. And because of our oversight, the Disinformation Governance Board at the Department of Homeland Security is gone. Because of our oversight, the memo attacking pro-life Catholics has been rescinded. Because of our oversight, unannounced visits to Americans' home by the Internal Revenue Service has stopped. That happened under Speaker McCarthy. And on the third one, on this side of it, we know there's a big old ugly bill coming at the end of the year, all kinds of spending, all kinds of garbage in it. We're still in that fight. Frankly, to Matt's point, we don't know how that one's going to shake out. But we do know this. We do know this. On Saturday, we didn't take the Senate's bill. They tried to send over and shove it down our throats on Saturday. We didn't take that bill. And it was a tough position he was in. There were 5 options on the table last week. Option 1 was to send a long-term CR over there that would have leveraged the 1% cut, something a bunch of us voted for, both parties. Couldn't get the votes for that one. Second option was to focus on the one issue the country now is completely focused on, the border issue. We couldn't get the votes for that one either. But when the Senate tried to send us that bill, he said no to it. I think the Speaker has kept his word. I know my colleagues and friends are saying different. I think he has kept his word on those 3 things that we talked about on January 3rd, and frankly, that entire week. He has kept his word. I think we should keep him as Speaker. I yield back.
And then Matt Gaetz, of course, they're going back and forth, so he had a chance to briefly respond.
Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Yeah, the problem with my friend from Ohio's argument is that many of the bills he referenced as having passed are not law. We are on a fast track to an omnibus bill, and it is difficult to champion oversight when House Republicans haven't even sent a subpoena to Hunter Biden. So it's hard to make the argument that oversight is the reason to continue when it sort of looks like failure theater.
Matt Gaetz doesn't have a lot of people behind him, and he is, as you heard, getting heckled by the vast majority of the Republican conference who still support McCarthy. But he's been, able to bring this thing to a vote through sheer force of will and determination.
And it was concerning to me to hear of news of a secret deal on Ukraine funding that would have log-rolled more money with Ukraine with our southern border. Now, how offensive is that to our Customs and Border Patrol, to our ICE, to the people that are suffering as a consequence of our border, that some of my colleagues are only willing to stand up and fight for our border if they could send billions to Ukraine to fund their border too? Well, I've had enough of that, and that's why I brought this motion to vacate.
All right, so the vote continues on the floor of the House right now. About 117 names have been called.
Goldman of New York.
As it stands right now, there are 63 votes to oust the Speaker. There are 53 votes to keep him. Make that 59 votes. So it's close, very close. As we get closer and closer, this is going to be very, very interesting to
Tony
watch.
Gonzalez.
So the vote continues
Vicente
right now,
Gonzalez.
and what a day it has been. There are other
Virginia.
people who have spoken on behalf of the speaker, and then of course you hear every
Good.
time
Of Texas.
they go back, Gates would we answer, talking often about the secret deal.
Texas.
Steve Scalise, the majority leader,
Go Sox.
had a few things to say. Here's a little short clip of that.
This House is going to have to
Nay.
continue to make those
Gottheimer.
changes. But the American people sent us here to
Yay.
confront those problems. We're finally starting to. This isn't the time to slow that process down. We need to keep doing our work. We need to keep fighting for those families who are struggling. But so does the Senate, and so does the White House as well. Let's keep doing this work that we were sent here to do. I yield back.
And so
Nay.
the slow, steady vote
Green of
continues.
Texas.
Again, there are 435 members of the House. Each of them must decide whether or not they want McCarthy
Yay.
to remain as the Speaker,
of Georgia.
or if they want somebody different and they
Nay.
want to vacate the chair and start over.
Griffith.
And again, it comes at a time when there's a lot to get
Nay.
done in 45 days
Grijalva.
to get some kind
Nay.
of deal done that would keep the
Grossman.
government in operation.
Nay.
But if the Speaker
Guest.
loses this vote that's happening as we
Nay.
speak,
Guthrie.
everything in the House of Representatives must come to a screeching halt. Nothing more
Hageman.
can happen because the House cannot operate until they have decided who the Speaker
Carter
is
of
going to be.
California.
And then, the question
Yay.
is, well, who if McCarthy is not
Harris.
it, then how many people,
Marsh
would be
Parker.
up for running for it? I mean,
Nay.
I'll tell you what, with margins this thin,
Hayes.
I'm not sure there's a lot of people who would actually be very interested in running for Speaker, given how difficult the job is
Nay.
when you only have margins of 5 and
Higgins
anybody
of
can come to the
Louisiana.
floor and ask that the seat be
Nay.
vacated. So this
Higgins of New York.
this is high drama in the nation's capital on the House of Representatives. Right now,
No.
it's an even tie. 88 say,
Nay.
let's keep him. 88 say, no, let's get rid of him.
Himes.
It's going to come down to,
Nay.
we're going to have to
Benson.
wait probably to the very end of this
Nay.
this thing.
Horsford.
If one side or the other gets to
Yay.
218, that's it.
Houchin.
So
Nay.
let's listen in for just a little while.
Houlihan. Yay. Hoyer. Hoyer. Yay.
Hoyer, a
of
Democrat,
Oregon.
voting to keep
Yay.
McCarthy.
Hudson. Nay. Huffman.
The general sense was that Democrats were not going to rescue
Huizenga.
McCarthy, as had happened in 1910 when Joe Cannon brought his own motion to vacate
Hunt.
and then
Nay.
retained his speakership with support from the opposite party.
Issa. Nay. Ivy. Yay. Jackson of Illinois. Yay.
Vote
Jackson
to oust
of North Carolina.
the speaker now stands 97 yeas
Yay.
and 94 nays.
Jackson of Texas. Nay. Jackson Lee. Yay.
Well, this is going to go for a while, so we're going to go ahead and continue our regular planned
James.
programming, and that means right now it's time to take a break. It's 30 minutes, 20 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Back in just a moment.
A vote now underway on the House floor to remove House Speaker Kevin McCarthy from his post. An update on Hunter Biden, that all more coming up 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yay.
Well, we're watching with a
Mace.
real with bated breath right now the floor of the House,
Yay.
where a vote is taking place to decide
Magaziner.
whether or not to remove Kevin McCarthy
Yay.
of California from the
Maliotakis.
chair of the speakership. Brought by Matt
Yay.
Gaetz. It really, the way that this probably
Man.
was fait accompli when we actually had the original vote back in January
Manning.
to pick the next speaker.
Yay.
Because they agreed to a rule that
Massey.
any one member could come to the floor of the House
Nay.
and ask that
Mass.
the seat of the speakership be vacated.
Nay.
Matt Gaetz has not been a big fan of
Matsui.
McCarthy for some time now.
Yay.
And really all it takes, because the
McBath.
margins are so thin in the House of Representatives,
Yay.
is about 5 people to vote
McCall.
for removing the speaker to put this
Nay.
whole thing into action. So right
McLean.
now, we're doing a roll call vote
Yay.
on the final measure.
McClellan.
If you vote yay, you are
Yay.
voting to oust the Speaker of the
McClintock.
House. If you vote nay, you are voting to
Nay.
keep the Speaker of the House. Right now, the vote is yays 130, nays 131. I mean, it's been going back and
Yay.
forth, back and forth, back and forth. If somebody gets to 218, one side or the other gets to 218, that's the magic number in the House of Representatives.
Nay.
So let's listen in for just a little minute as
Garvey.
you are hearing history being made
Yay.
on the floor of the House. This has not happened in the history of the House of
Yay.
Representatives except for one other time
McHenry.
back in 1910.
Nay. Meeks. Yay. Menendez. Yay. Ming. Yay. Muser. Nay. Mfume. Yay. Miller of Illinois. Nay. Miller of Ohio. Nay. Miller of West Virginia. Nay. Miller Meeks. Nay. Mills.
I can tell you a little bit about some of the votes that have taken place.
Mills.
First, on the table to motion it, which would be basically to set this
Molinaro.
aside, the only member of the Tennessee delegation who voted to table earlier on
Molinar.
was Tim Burchett. Andy Ogles, I've noted, did vote to table the motion. However, we're now into the second vote, which is, well, do we keep McCarthy or not? Congressman Desjardins voted to keep McCarthy. Congressman Fleischman voted to keep McCarthy. Mark Green voted to keep McCarthy.
Moore of Alabama.
Harshberger voted to keep
Nay.
McCarthy. Kustoff
Moore of Utah.
voted to keep McCarthy.
Nay.
Right now, the
Wisconsin.
yeas have 139
Yay.
votes to oust the
Moran.
speaker, 143
Nay.
to keep him.
Morelli. Yay. Moskowitz. Yay. Moulton. Yay. Mervan. Yay. Mullen. Yay. Murphy. Nay. Nadler.
While we're waiting on this vote, and we're about a little more than halfway through, why don't we open up the phone lines? If you have something you'd like to say about this, 615-737-9986. How do you feel about this whole thing? Are you with Gates and his small group of what I guess you would have to say hardline conservatives, or are you with the people, the vast majority of the Republican conference that wants to keep McCarthy? 615-737-9986. Right now,
Norcross.
as the clerk continues the slow and steady drumbeat of doing one of these voice votes where everybody has to sit in their chair. I mean, you could drop a pen right now in the House of Representatives.
Of Iowa.
All members, every seat almost is filled.
Nay.
It's rare to see all members on the floor of the House. Usually during a vote, they come in, they cast their ballots, and they move on. But in a roll call vote like this, everyone has to be there. And so every seat is filled as the clerk of the House continues to call the roll. Right now, it's, again, very close. 151 voting to oust the Speaker, 151 to keep him. What a moment it is. Okay, while we're waiting, we'll pull this down. Let's go to the phone lines, if we could, and start with Scott. Scott, you're on with Brian on the drive. What's your thought about all this, Scott?
I think right now I think they need to keep McCarthy. Maybe Gates needs to go.
Well, I tell you what.
I think he's done a fine job. I think Gates needs to go.
All right, Scott. Thank you so much for that. I mean, Jerry is on the line next. Jerry, have you any thoughts about this? What's your thinking of this whole procedure that's now underway?
Well, I hate that McCarthy has to go, but the problem is that they told McCarthy they were going to do this, and he's the one that didn't keep his word.
Yeah,
he's the one that went around them.
Yeah, it depends on how you look at it, but I mean, he said he would do certain things, but I think there's a question about
the bill. Yeah. He said he would do the bills individually, and he didn't.
Well, he tried. He's not alone there. It takes all these committees have to do their work as well. But you're right, and he got 70% of it done before they had to go to the short-term spending bill. Compare and contrast that with what happened in the Senate, where none of the bills were out. So. And here's the thing, a lot of what comes out of the House will not become final law because it would then have to go to conference with the Senate, and they'd work out some kind of compromise, as they always do, when there's a difference between the Senate appropriations bills and the House appropriations bills. Right now, the vote, 163 to oust the Speaker, 157 to keep him. See. My math is always suspect.
And Brian, we just heard Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles voted to keep House Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
Thank you so much, Mac. And anything else you've got like that, let me know.
Will do.
We've still got about 150 or so votes to go before we get there. It is yay 165 to oust the Speaker, 160 to keep him.
Nay.
And again, 435 votes are required to be taken. And if one side or the other reaches the magic number of 218, it will be over. Okay, again, phone lines are open. It says 615-737-9986 if you have some thought about all this. History being made on the floor of the House today. And the question that is up at the moment is, will the House of Representatives retain Kevin McCarthy of California as the Speaker, who became Speaker in January? You may remember it was a late-night affair. I remember staying up late on that night as they continued to try to find a Speaker. It took 15 rounds. That's not the record. I mean, we've had times in this country where we've been without a Speaker for as much as, I forget, like a month or more. So it can really be a difficult thing when you have the politics that we have right now. But again, right now, if you were to be called now, Speaker McCarthy would be ousted. There are 174 votes to oust him. There are 166 votes to keep him. So the measure looks like, at least at this moment, as we are only into the S's, is that McCarthy would not survive this. He pretty much said, if there are 5 votes against me, it's all over. So, again, Rose voted to keep McCarthy. Ogles voted to keep McCarthy. Kustoff keep McCarthy. Harshberger voted to keep McCarthy. Mark Green, who has often been talked about as someone that the conservatives would rally around as a potential speaker, voted to keep McCarthy. Fleischman voted to keep McCarthy. Desjardins voted to keep keep McCarthy. And again, right now, the number's tightening a bit. 180 to oust the Speaker, 170 votes to keep him. And boy, I'm telling you, this could go down to the wire. These things are hard to predict until you get down to the last numbers. So let's listen in just a moment.
Self. Nay. Sessions. Nay. Sewell. Yay. Sherman. Yay. Sherrill. Yay.
Well, while we're waiting on this, maybe we'll go ahead and squeeze in the news very quickly. We are behind on this because we're doing live coverage of this historic moment on the House floor. Let's take a break now at 35 minutes past the hour. With apologies to Mac Morey, it's time for the news.
.335, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Mostly sunny, 87 degrees right now in Music City. And you heard Brian Wilson talking about it. Vote right now underway on the House floor to remove House Speaker Kevin McCarthy from his post.
More than an hour of debate on the House floor over whether Speaker Kevin McCarthy should lose his title. There's a motion to table the motion to oust him under consideration, but if there aren't enough votes to table it, a motion for McCarthy to vacate the speakership will be next, with hardline Republicans led by Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz wanting him out.
You know, that's not many people. That's Matt Gaetz and a few renegades. The only way that Matt Gaetz and a few renegades can kick McCarthy out of his job is if Democrats go along with them, and Democrats are going to go along with them.
ABC's Jonathan Karl, but McCarthy does have his allies passionately speaking up in his defense, including Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio.
He has kept his word. I think we should keep him as Speaker. I yield back.
If McCarthy is ousted, it would be the first time in history that the House will have voted to remove a sitting speaker.
And right now, tracking the live votes, 194 yes votes to keep McCarthy, or to oust McCarthy, 183 no votes to keep McCarthy as House Speaker. Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles voted to keep House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And over in Delaware, President Biden's son, Hunter, has entered a plea of not guilty for his arraignment on a felony possession of a firearm charge 5 years ago. Part of the charges accuse Hunter Biden of lying on a background check. His lawyers say the court needs to consider that the president's son was addicted to drugs at the time. That's the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It is 40 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. We're listening very carefully to the floor of the House of Representatives. I've actually, Mason, I've lost my feed. If you still have the clean feed, I'd appreciate it. The yeas, 216 to oust the Speaker, and the nays, 206 to keep the Speaker. It's not looking very good for Kevin McCarthy at this moment. They're going through and catching their numbers now, so let's see.
Yeah, we're sitting at 216 and 206 on our end here.
That's what I've got. Okay. All right, so that would be 416 votes. I'm sorry. That's not right. Let me double say it's 6. That's a 12. And that would be 2. We're very close to the final count there, and it looks like they're reconciling now. The clerk apparently has
call the names of members that have not already been recorded alphabetically.
All right, so you've got to go through these names again, that the people who did not respond the first time. And there are some people. Really, it looks like if there are 2 more votes to oust the Speaker, it's all over. 216 is where we are now.
Bush.
216 to oust the Speaker, 207 to keep the Speaker.
Kamek. Nay.
Okay, I've got Carter of Texas next.
Carter of Texas. Carter of Texas.
So then we're going to go to Tony Gonzalez.
Now, are some people laying out? That's a good question. And will there be all 435 members in attendance today? Because that could change the numbers. But right now, if all 435 people cast a ballot, you need to get to 218 on one side or the other. It is now 216 for removing the Speaker, 209 to keep Speaker Kevin McCarthy of California.
Next I have is Luna.
Luna. Luna. Mills. Nay.
Tense moments for Kevin McCarthy as his speakership is right on the precipice.
Pelosi. Peltola.
Isn't it interesting? Nancy Pelosi has not yet cast her ballot.
Peltola.
Yeah.
Sykes. Sykes.
Are there other members in this body who have not been recorded or who wish to change their vote?
I've never heard the House of Representatives this quiet. Every member sitting on the edge of their seat wondering how this is going to be resolved. Above the dais, the press gallery packed. Right now, 216 votes to oust the Speaker, 210 to retain him. The magic number is 218 if all 435 members of the House vote. Nobody rushing to change their vote. Several members holding on to their votes for the moment. 4:44 p.m. Eastern Time as this vote is drawing to a close. Wide shot of the House of Representatives shows that I don't see anybody having conversations, or arm twisting that is going on. Everybody seems to be just sitting in their place, waiting for this thing to come to some kind of conclusion.
You got the tally?
Here's the tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 216. The nays are 210. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
Wow. History has been made in the House of Representatives. I guess not all 435 members are casting ballots today. With a vote of 216 to 210, Speaker McCarthy has been ousted from his job as Speaker of the House. And now everything, this is where it gets interesting, because everything must now come to a stop. No further business can take place in the House of Representatives until we have a vote to find a new speaker. And it will require 218 votes, or if there are a few who are not voting today, who are out of town or ill or whatever it might be, for one reason or another, that number could change. But right now, the
chair lays before the House.
The House of Representatives effectively cannot function because it does not have a Speaker of the House.
This is to notify you that the first name on the letter received by the clerk pursuant to Clause 8B, 3B of Rule 1 is the Honorable Patrick T. McHenry of North Carolina. Signed sincerely, Kevin F. McCumber, Acting Clerk.
Pursuant to Clause 8B3 of Rule 1, I will now act as Speaker pro tem. The Chair will inform the members of the House the following. The office of the Speaker was rendered vacant pursuant to the adoption of House Resolution 757. Upon a vacancy in the office of Speaker, Clause 8B3 of Rule 1 provides that the next member on a list submitted by the Speaker, pursuant to the rule, acts as Speaker pro tem until the election of a new Speaker, and bestows the authorities of the office of Speaker upon the Speaker pro tem to the extent necessary and appropriate to that end. In the opinion of the Chair, prior to proceeding to the election of a Speaker, it would be prudent to first recess for the relative caucus and conferences to meet and discuss the path forward. Accordingly, pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess subject to the call of the Chair.
Well, that's it. They're gonna punt for a little while and allow both the Democrats and the Republicans to go back to their respective meeting rooms and decide who is going to be the next Speaker of the House. And the voting, who knows when the voting will take place? But for now, the House is in recess. It's an adjournment, and we are waiting. It's the next developments, which may take a few minutes, may take hours. But here is the real recap. Speaker Kevin McCarthy is no longer the Speaker. Elected on the 15th round of balloting in January, he has served in that position until just a few moments ago, when the vote was 216 to 206 to get rid of the Speaker of the House and begin the process of selecting a new Speaker. How will Republicans react? Now, the Republicans very divided on this. There is a small group of people who forced this vote and then voted against McCarthy, and in doing so, they have it really is effectively a small number of Republicans who are all the Democrats were likely going to vote against McCarthy, and that did occur. But it was only a small number of Republicans who voted against him. But the margins are so thin that at a vote with 216 votes saying he should be ousted, he is ousted. And now the process of deciding who is going to become the next Speaker of the House will begin. We're going to take some calls. We're going to answer your questions. We'll do a lot more on this in the coming hours. But the big news out of Washington today is that the House of Representatives right now is effectively unable to function without a Speaker of the House because Kevin McCarthy has been removed as the Speaker of the House. 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You know, we talk often about USS, United Structural Systems, a company that has been around for about 25 years, 25,000 satisfied residential customers. So if you have waterproofing issues or if you have foundation issues, they're the company that you want to call. But listen, we don't take my word for it. Listen to people who have actually done business with them. This is Joshua from Nashville. Recently, our foundation was repaired by the team at USS, and it was an exceptional experience. They finished ahead of schedule, kept us informed every step of the way, and restored everything perfectly. Even after digging deep into our lawn and tearing out our concrete, their professionalism and courtesy stood out, working seamlessly around the other vendors at our house and explained all the changes up front. Communication was top-notch and friendly, making the process smooth. What impressed us most was the cleanliness. They contained the mess and left the site spotless. We got multiple quotes. USS was not only competitive but honest, without the unnecessary add-ons we saw from others. Highly recommend USS. Listen, they give you their best every time, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com. Here's the number, 615-488-7855.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. When we get to retirement, what do we want to do? We want to go and kick back, right? But we also want to take an income from our investment portfolios. And there are a lot of common myths that I hear about how do you take an income from an investment portfolio. One is that people will get into, this was really big a few years ago, really big, real estate investment trust. Now, real estate gets rented and it kicks off an income, and then you have some kind of dividend that's paid, and because the REIT has to pay out most of the dividend, it's a great way to take income in retirement. But what happens, like what happened recently, when all of a sudden the properties go unrented? What happens to your income? Bye-bye, it's gone. Another thing that I see is this: people buy stocks or stock mutual funds that are dividend paying, and what we'll do is we'll live off the dividends. Well, what is the dividend? It's part of the earnings of the company. So you got the earnings of the company, right? And then what happens is the company may pay out some of the dividend, and they call that a dividend when they pay it out, or they may retain some of it, and it's called retained earnings. Well, the problem is this: What if the company's earnings go down? Just like the real estate investment trust up here, what if the earnings go down? What happens to your dividend? It goes away. All of a sudden, it's bye-bye to your retirement income. So what do we want to do? We want to diversify way better. If you look at the academic research on investing and how to take income from a portfolio, quite often what it is saying, okay, I'm going to have some money in various asset classes. Large companies, small companies, value companies, growth companies, international companies, short-term bonds and intermediate bonds and so on and so forth. And what I do is I look at these different areas of the market and they have a historic return. And what happens if the portfolio does this area of the market does better than this one? Well, in that particular year, I'm going to take income from this part of the portfolio. Then the next year, maybe this area does better than everything else. I'll take income from there. So what I'm doing is diversifying, which is an age-old concept. I mean, good grief, Nobel Prize winning concept of investing. And I actually apply it to taking income from a portfolio. So why is it that we often see this kind of stuff? It's because of the fees and the commissions and all of the incentives to sell you things that maybe aren't in your best interest. And a lot of advisors, you look at it, they aren't held to a fiduciary standard. In other words, they don't have to keep your best interest first. Paul Winkler, Inc., we hold ourselves voluntarily to that standard, and we actually disclose it in our disclosure brochures. So if you want to know more about what we do and learn more and educate along the way, go to paulwinkler.com. Set up a free 15-minute phone call so that you can learn more, become an educated investor. First step is easy. paulwinkler.com, free 15-minute phone call, and get started ASAP because you can't afford to wait. You've got to make sure you get this right. You don't get a second shot.
Kevin McCarthy ousted as Speaker of the House, crime in Tennessee, a teacher drunk while at school, and the best elementary schools in the state of Tennessee. Those stories and more at 4 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Your calls on all this coming up in the next hour. So if you're on the line, please stand by. And if you are not on the line, get on the line at 615-737-9986. Very quickly, look at markets. Dow Jones Industrials down 430 points. S&P down 58 on the day. NASDAQ down a whopping 248 points. Oil prices are up. Oil and West Texas Intermediate crude selling for 89 bucks a barrel. Brent crude a little bit above 90 bucks a barrel. For more on what's driving the market today and more economic news, let's check in with John Maxson from Beacon Capital Management. Good afternoon, John.
Hey, Brian, how are you? Yeah, pretty rough day on the market. You know, all the indexes were down for the day, but the Dow in particular with the loss today is actually negative for the year, which is something we haven't really seen so far this year. The sell-off really began with a jobs report that came out with more job openings than expected. And what that's doing is putting pressure on the market that the Fed may not be done raising interest rates to combat inflation, which, of course, we continue to hear about. And then to your point, with the increase again today in elevated energy prices, that's not going to take any pressure off from the Fed. So good news, this is an example of where good news is actually bad news for interest rate cycles. So there's other job reports coming out later this week. They're going to be something to watch really closely.
All right. Thank you very much, John Maxon. And you can learn more about all the things they can do for you at Beacon Capital Management by going to Beacon or askbeaconnow.com. Listen, we have so much happening right now. We're going to take a break and do the news. And coming up, we'll reset and tell you everything that happened. But the big news this hour here on Super Talk 99.7 is that Kevin McCarthy has been ousted as Speaker of the House, and effectively the House of Representatives is sort of in gridlock, cannot function until they decide who the next Speaker is going to be. Stay tuned. It's going to be an interesting afternoon. It is now 4:01, time for the news with Mac Morey.
.402, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 87 degrees, a sunny day in Music City. Complete weather and traffic report in 5 minutes. Some breaking news. Kevin McCarthy has been ousted as Speaker of the House less than a year after he was historically voted in. And this is truly now uncharted territory. They'll have to elect a temporary speaker. And until then, the House is paralyzed. No governing can go on. This could be a contentious process. Every Democrat voted to vacate the chair, while also McCarthy lost 8 Republican votes, and there are some 40-odd days until a government shutdown will take place, and unless an agreement's reached, this is the only time in United States history a Speaker of the House has been voted out of their chair. Right now in Tennessee, there were 2 burglary suspects in Brentwood this morning. The suspects crashed a car near the Concord Hunt subdivision and took off running. Police asked neighbors to stay indoors while they searched. Channel 4 now says that's no longer the case, but no word on whether those suspects are in custody. And in Northern California, sheriff deputies say they have arrested a second-grade teacher who was drunk while teaching kids. Alex Stone.
When Sutter County deputies arrived at New Westro Elementary School in Live Oak, California, to a call of a teacher who was possibly drunk, they say they found 58-year-old Wendy Munson teaching her second-grade class. They say she showed signs of being under the influence of something. She was arrested for possible DUI after deputies saw video of her driving to school. She failed a sobriety test and has also been charged with child endangerment because she was teaching a class. Detectives say 2 hours later, her blood alcohol level was still 2 times a legal limit to drive.
Right now in the Volunteer State News 2 says that based off a report of data compiled from Niche that ranked the best elementary schools in all of the nation, but specifically even here in Middle Tennessee, the rankings are made by looking at combined ratings that come from students, parents, and alumni. The number 1 elementary school in Middle Tennessee, according to this report, Jordan Elementary. The next was Creekside, and at 3rd was Lakeland, and at 10 was Foothills Elementary School. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 9 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7, and history has been made in the House of Representatives today. For the very first time in the history of that body, there has been a vote to oust the Speaker. There have been other attempts in the past, but they were unsuccessful. Today, Kevin McCarthy was removed as Speaker with a vote of 216 to 210. Now, there are 435 members of the House of Representatives, and if you add those two numbers up, you come to 426. That means 9 people were either not present or not voting today. What has happened since then is that they have adjourned the House, subject to the call of the chair, so that Democrats can go into their room and talk about what they want to do next, and Republicans can go into their room and talk about what they want to do next. These are called caucus meetings. Would you like to be a fly on the wall inside the Republican caucus? Because the vast majority of Republicans that will be there supported McCarthy. It was only a handful of Republicans, including Tim Burchett of Knoxville, a Republican, and all other members of the Tennessee delegations who are Republicans voted to keep McCarthy as House Speaker, including DeJarlais, Fleischman, Mark Green, Diana Harshberger, David Kustoff, Andy Ogles, John Rose, all decided that they wanted to keep House Speaker. It was only Tim Burchett, the lone member of the Republican caucus in the state of Tennessee, that voted to oust him. He said it was a difficult decision, one that he had to think about quite a bit. So what happens now? Well, the House of Representatives effectively can do nothing. They are a body that is basically in stop mode, full stop mode right now, because you cannot proceed until you have a speaker. And Lord knows how long it's going to take us to have a Speaker of the House, given the fact that in January it took 15 rounds to get McCarthy. McCarthy now out. What will happen next? I mean, there are all kinds of scenarios that are being discussed. Matt Gaetz, outside the House of Representatives, shortly after the historic vote, it was Matt Gaetz who brought this matter to a boiling point and forced the vote today. Matt Gaetz talking to reporters.
Is it to the benefit of you and to Donald Trump? It's the benefit of this country that we have a better Speaker of the House than Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy couldn't keep his word. He made an agreement in January regarding the way Washington would work, and he violated that agreement. We are $33 trillion in debt. We are facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits. We face a de-dollarization globally that will crush Americans, working class Americans. Kevin McCarthy is a feature of the swamp. He has risen to power by collecting special interest money and redistributing that money in exchange for favors. We are breaking the fever now, and we should elect a speaker who's better.
So if not Kevin McCarthy, then who? You said last night that Steve Scalise was a name that you floated to potentially be speaker. Where do things stand right now? If not McCarthy, then who? Well, the stages of grief, I think, are in progress right now with some of my colleagues. I think there was a stage of denial, and I've certainly experienced a good amount of their anger, and now we appear to be headed toward bargaining. I think the world of Steve Scalise. I think he'd make a phenomenal speaker.
So Steve Scalise is the majority leader of the House of Representatives right now. He's the number 2 Republican in charge of that body, and he has been loyal in the past to Kevin McCarthy, but he is widely regarded by many, many people there in the House of Representatives, and might be a leading contender for the job of Speaker. I'm going to throw one wild one out there, and that is Mark Green of Tennessee, who is also held in very high esteem by both sides, those who are the ultra conservatives who brought about this vote today, and I don't want to say they're all moderates, because a lot of them are not moderates. They are very strong conservatives, but the other bunch of people who voted to keep McCarthy like Green as well. It is not a requirement of the law that the Speaker of the House be a member of the House. It's never happened to my knowledge. I can't think of a case where someone from the outside was chosen, but that is a possibility. Somebody who is on the outside that is not a member of the House come in and become Speaker. It would require 218 votes, or a majority of those voting that day. So It's going to be interesting. When you say that you don't have to be a member, there are people throwing around the idea that Donald Trump should be the Speaker of House. And that would be, I don't think likely, but it is something that I bet we get a vote on. So to the phone lines we go, 615-737-9986. Time to get, your thoughts on all this. We'll start with Joe, who's been very patient waiting on the line. Joe, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on the drive.
Good afternoon. The point I want to bring up, it's my understanding that the current speaker makes a list of who should be voted on if he is no longer speaker. I don't know if that's because of health reasons, death. I don't know that he anticipated being ousted. But my understanding is also that it would have to be a Republican. But there are people that think the Democrats can put someone in there. But that's not possible.
Well, listen, given the fact that Republicans outnumber Democrats by just a small margin, just 5 votes, all Republicans would have to be, if there were to be people who voted, Republican Party members who voted with the Democrats, then it is potentially possible, though I think unlikely, that a Democrat could become Speaker of the House. But look, we're just to put a fine point on it here. Everybody's got a lot of questions. I'm not sure I'm going to have all the answers, and the reason is we're in uncharted territory. This has never happened before in the history of the United States. The last time there was an attempt to vacate the chair, it was in 1910, so 113 years ago. Joe Cannon was the Speaker of the House. And there was some disgruntlement among the people in his party. And so Joe Cannon decided on his own to call for a vote to vacate the chair. And then he got help of the opposite party in getting his speakership confirmed, and he went forward. That's the last time this has happened. This is the first time in the history of the United States that an attempt to vacate the chair of Speaker of the House has been successful. It's driven by about 5 or 6 members of the House of Representatives who felt it was time for McCarthy to go. Bob in Hendersonville, you're on with Brian on the drive. Hello, Bob. What's on your mind today?
Hi, thanks, Brian, for taking my call. Yeah, I've been in the government since Nixon administration, so I'm in my 70s, and I've seen a lot of this, the continuing resolutions. They've always been here. But what I have found in that time, Democrats rarely, if ever, went against the party, and they voted party line, and that's the hard part. They're not voting American way, what's best for us. So that's the thing that I'm taking from this. Again, it's party line. Every single Democrat voted for the removal of McCarthy. Of Kevin, yeah. And that's the major issue. Republicans tend to always segregate themselves, divide, and they can't get very much accomplished because of that separation. So that's what I see. And the other problem is Pogo said it correctly when he said, we saw the enemy and they are us. We are voting for these people continuously. They spend the money, but we vote them in. And the only reason that they get voted in is because they bring the projects, the pork, to their states. That's what they're there for.
Yes, you have put your finger on a lot of the issues that continue in modern day politics. You're absolutely, Bob. I really think you're onto something there. Nice analysis. Eddie, down at Murfreesboro. Eddie, you're on with Brian on the drive. Your thoughts?
Long-time listener, first-time caller, Brian. Great job you're doing down there. Hey, listen, I don't know, this might be a conspiracy theory, but I think this is by design. We all know that he's a rhino. So I think what's happened is they voted him out on purpose to leave that seat empty so Democrats can push more of their agenda down our throats. I mean, that's my gut feeling on it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, it can't remain empty because no action can take place on the floor of the House. Nothing can happen until they go through the process of selecting the next speaker. And if you remember January, we got a situation where it took 15 rounds to decide who the Speaker of the House was going to be, and it was tooth and tongue there for hour after hour after hour. So, but nothing can go forward. The Democrats can't take action. The Republicans can't take action. Essentially, Congress, one half of Congress, is not functioning at the moment. So nothing will happen in the House.
So that means no more money for Ukraine then, right?
Well, for the moment, that would be the case. Yes, you seem right. That's right.
Amen to
Eddie,
that,
thank you for the call. Let's go to Keith. Keith is calling in. I don't know where Keith's calling in from, but Keith, you're up with Brian on the drive.
Yes, sir. Can you give me 1 second? Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Keith. Turn down your radio.
Okay. Yeah, my volume was up. One morning or another. I'm sorry. My questions are, I have a few. Now that this horrible thing has happened, is there any way a chance to stop Biden now from completely destroying America and his currency way, committing treason?
Well, the one thing I would say about this is that, honestly, the House of Representatives being controlled by Republicans ostensibly, even though it's a House divided, it is still controlled by Republicans, was the one body that could push back on Biden. And what we have now is a squabble among among party faithful. I mean, everybody there that's a Republican, went there with the idea of pushing back on Biden, but they ended up fighting among themselves to some degree. And I don't want to. I want to make sure you understand this, and that is that we have a situation here where the vast majority of the Republicans who serve in the House of Representatives supported McCarthy. But when we went through that 15 rounds, McCarthy allowed to get elected. He said, okay, here's the thing. I'll agree that one person can come to the floor and force a vote on vacating the chair. Well, that's what has happened. And then the vote, as you know, was 216 to 210. There were 426 members of the 435 members voting today. That means that 9 people either were not in attendance today for sickness or a variety of reasons. It's rare that all 435 members of the House are always there all the time. But 9 people decided not to vote. Still, by 11 votes, McCarthy lost his speakership. Now, both sides have decided to go back into their respective corners, if you will, and they will try to decide exactly what happens going forward. Thank you for the call. More of your calls in just a moment. Right now, it is 22 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock.
An historic day in Congress as Kevin McCarthy has been ousted as Speaker of the House. And today's Money News, those stories coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, what an interesting day we have on tap here. We are breaking all kinds of new history, new ground here today in the House of Representatives. The people's body, the body most directly that is responsive to the people, is the House of Representatives, because the members are elected every 2 years. And as you know, Republicans captured that body from the Democrats, but only by a very slim margin, only by about 5 votes. And it took 15 rounds for the House of Representatives to decide on who was going to be their speaker before they settled on Kevin McCarthy. Now we are 10 months into the first year of the 2-year term, and they have ousted McCarthy. And by the way, I just want to make sure everybody understands, the vast majority of Republicans want McCarthy. It is a small number of Republicans who wanted to oust him, but because he can't afford to lose more than 5 votes, he lost his speakership today when the vote was finally taken. The vote was 216 to 210. 426 people voting, 9 people either not present or not voting today. Both sides have gone back to their respective corners to caucus to talk more about what they want to see going forward. I mean, to be a fly on the wall inside the Republican caucus where there is going to be a great deal of anger in that room aimed at Matt Gaetz, because Matt Gaetz is the guy who brought this forward, and there were just a handful of Republicans who voted against McCarthy and ousted him. It's the first time a speaker has been removed in the history of the House. There have been votes to vacate, but they did not succeed. And so this is new territory, and how it's going to be resolved is going to be, well, it's anybody's guess how this whole thing is going to be resolved. So we are taking a few calls here at 615-737-9986. Steve in Cookville has an idea about someone who might make a good speaker. Steve, what's your thought about all this?
New speaker, Mike Pompeo.
Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State under Trump. Interesting. That would be an interesting choice. You know, it is true that you don't have to be a member of the House to be the Speaker of the House. It's one of the weird. Yeah.
Who is next in line for the presidency when the Speaker's chair is vacant?
Haven't run that trot line yet, but let me get on it. It would be maybe the president pro tempore of the Senate, who I believe right now would be
Patty Murray.
Patty Murray. Yeah. That's my guess at the moment, but I'll try to lock that down.
Yep.
Steve,
Patty
thank
Murray.
you for the call. Patty Murray. Thank you very much, Steve. Greatly appreciate it. So much, going on here, and while I'm trying to hold air, it's difficult to do as much research as I would like to do to prepare for all your answers. We're going to take a break now for some more news. We're all over this. If you have something you want to say about it, 615-737-9986. Right now, time for the news with Mac Morey.
.30, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Mostly sunny, 87 degrees, full weather forecast. Latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. An unprecedented day in Congress. For the first time in U.S. history, a House Speaker has had the gavel taken away. Congressman Kevin McCarthy has been voted out of his post after the Democrats joined with the few renegade Republicans that supported the resolution put forth by Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz. Jonathan Karl says this move now leaves Congress at a standstill.
But until the speaker is elected, until somebody gets a majority of all those voting and a speaker is elected, all they can do is vote again and vote again. They can adjourn for the evening, adjourn for the day, adjourn for the weekend, but they can do no business. No bills can be considered, nothing, until there is a Speaker of the House.
And now over to the Money News, Daria Albinger.
Stocks tumbled to their worst day in months as investors focused on the downside of a surprisingly strong job market. The The Dow plunged 431 points, wiping away the last of its gains for the year so far. The Nasdaq gave up 248 for the session. The S&P closed down 59. Stocks fell under pressure from rising Treasury yields in the bond market. That's the main reason the stock market has lost more than 40% of its value since the end of July, after steadily rising earlier in the year. The Labor Department says employers advertised 9.6 million job openings at the end of August, more than the 8.9 million economists expected. That could give the Fed more incentive to keep interest rates high. United Airlines is making another massive order for new planes, the second one in less than a year. The carrier will add 50 Boeing 787s and 60 Airbus A321s as it renews an aging fleet.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Let me tell you, if I could, about the folks over at Eurofix. Good people. We have exciting news. If you've lived here for a long time, you know that Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee, been the place to go for your European car repairs now for 24 years, and you've gotten to watch them grow. It's great to watch a hometown business take off. Well, the folks at Eurofix are now proud to announce a fifth location for Eurofix in Mount Juliet, on Mount Juliet Road, directly across the street from the Dairy Queen. Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now, of course, Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in a barn in the backyard of his single-wide trailer grow to 5 locations, repairing thousands of cars each month. At Eurofix, you get a nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointments. So call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com. 37 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. As an old Hill rat, I got to tell you, it's an exciting day to be covering the politics in Washington. The House of Representatives has done something today that has never happened in the history of that body. They have removed a Speaker of the House. Kevin McCarthy, effective about an hour ago, is no longer the Speaker of the House, and that effectively means that the body can do nothing. The body must now decide who the Speaker is before they can go forward with anything. So half of Congress is what we've got at the moment. Let me just run through thehill.com. These are people who cover the Hill every day. These are the Hill nerds, if you will, with reporters who crawl these halls every day. And here's how they have reported on the events of the last hour or two. House makes history, moves McCarthy as Speaker. Kevin McCarthy, Republican of California, is no longer Speaker of the House. A small group of House Republicans led by Matt Gaetz, Republican of Florida, along with Representatives Andy Biggs, Ken Buck of Colorado, Tim Burchett of Tennessee, Eli Crane of Arizona, Bob Good of Virginia, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, and Matt Rosendale of Republican, voted with all Democrats to oust him. That's the sort of ironic thing about it. All Democrats, of course, are going to vote against McCarthy as Speaker. That's because they're Democrats and he's a Republican. So they don't want him as Speaker. And all it took was, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 votes against McCarthy to send the speakership away, to send McCarthy out of the speakership. Interestingly enough, the next line is, and I sort of agree with this, the House is now in uncharted territory. Representative Patrick Henry, Republican of North Carolina, a key McCarthy ally, declared acting Speaker pro tempore, that is, chosen from a list designated by McCarthy and shared with the House clerk. This is a process implemented for continuity of government reasons after 9/11. Members in both parties expect that the Speaker pro tempore has the chief responsibility of presiding over the House until a new Speaker is chosen. Until then, House aides expect the House to be able to do little else, creating a repeat of McCarthy's historic 15-ballot election in January. His ouster on Tuesday today is inextricably linked to that 4-day 15-ballot saga. It's true. I mean, that really is true. In order to sway the 20 holdouts that were against him in January, McCarthy agreed to a number of conditions, including changing the threshold to force a vote on ousting the Speaker from 5 members to just 1. Ever since that day, it has always been possible that 1 member could call to vacate the chair, and if you could find 4 other votes, you would succeed. Well, he found 8 votes. Matt Gaetz did. The motion to vacate has been hanging over his head ever since. The Republicans, 8 who voted to remove McCarthy from the speakership, largely cited anger over his handling of fiscal issues. McCarthy on Saturday averted a government shutdown by putting a clean stopgap funding measure on the bill, on the House floor, passing it with the help of Democrats. It was a last resort for McCarthy, who had attempted to pass a GOP funding plan. This is what was sort of irritating to me as an observer. That first effort by McCarthy to find a way to fund the government would have secured more funding for border security and would have cut the budget by a significant amount over the next 45 days. It was, I thought, a pretty good bill, but he couldn't get it through. There weren't enough votes to get it across. So then he had to go to Democrats and ask them for help to keep the government running. And after that, the long knives were out for Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy and his allies think the move is also personal. Gaetz, a chief McCarthy antagonist, has been threatening to force a vote on ousting the Speaker for weeks. McCarthy has said he thinks Gaetz is lashing out over an ethics investigation into Gaetz's behavior. But McCarthy's ouster was in large part the result of Democrats who announced hours before Tuesday's vote they would not protect McCarthy from the handful of rabble-rousers in his own party. Why would they? I mean, now what they have is they have Republicans in disarray, and although 9 people There are 9 people out there who chose not to vote, or perhaps decided that, could not be here today. So let's watch this very carefully as we go forward. I want to take a few calls to see what you think about it as we go forward. And I promise you that in the next hour, we will give you a recap of this, and then we will move on to perhaps some other stories for the day. Marty in Columbia. Marty, good afternoon.
Hello, sir.
You're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say, Marty?
Well, I think it is a little bit strange that Matt Gaetz, a couple of weeks ago, he gave an interview and he was so against McCarthy working with the Democrats, and he was dancing along with the Democrats. Now, this same Matt Gaetz needs the Democrats to get McCarthy out of the House, and I think it is very sad that just a little group of Republicans is just voting against their own party, and that they can just hijack our own party with the help of the Democrats. As far as I know, and me is being told, when you're a Republican, doesn't matter who's on top of the list, who's the speaker. When you're Republican, you vote Republican. And if we need the Democrats for something, that is not good. And how's the fight it against itself? Does not stand. We need unity.
All right, Marty. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Greatly appreciate it. John in Greenbrier. John, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on the Drive. What's your thought, John?
Brian, I think this is pathetic, and I think it's predicated on this notion of folks that, somehow out there's this secret Trump coalition that's going to do well in 2024. I think we have a great opportunity, given Biden's mental health, his performance record, given the unpopularity of Democrats, and we're shooting ourselves in the feet right now. What Matt Gaetz is doing is both self-serving and it may be opportunistic. And as a consequence of that, all of these people who are rallying behind him saying, oh, well, this is what he gets. Matt Gaetz voted with Trump 100% of the time. Not saying Trump can't have some great ideas, but this is a completely self-serving move. Politics is glacial, and all we ever do is get our foot in the door, and then we immediately blast it right off. It's absolutely pathetic what's happening. Gaetz sitting around there and basically having a little parade for himself while simultaneously setting ourselves up for the next 2 months to be the center of the news cycle of dysfunction. That's going to play in the 2024 narrative while Biden gets a protein drip in his basement and slowly melts away into obscurity. We're going to have to listen to this. Oh, the dysfunction of the Republicans. Oh, look, January 6th. This is going to be the narrative, and guess what? We're giving it right to them.
All right, John, and I want you to make me a promise that you'll never get into talk radio because you're very good. Thank you for the call.
I've thought about it before, but I'll keep out of it for you.
All right, thank you. Sharon in Nashville. Sharon, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on the Drive. What's your thought, Sharon? Sharon?
But my question is, so everything's on hold, even the Biden impeachment inquiry?
Yes, no action can go forward in the House of Representatives. No committee work, no votes on the floor, no movement of legislation. We are in basically Congress is in gridlock at the moment with the clock ticking 42 days until we have another potential government shutdown. So this takes away from the effort to try to do that. Not perhaps the most important thing, but it is a thing. And right now, I think that just my personal opinion here, I've been trying to give you a lot of analysis. I want to give you my personal opinion now. We look pretty stupid as conservatives right now, squabbling among ourselves like this. We have a body that was pushing back. The only body that is in our government today that can push back against the Biden agenda is the House of Representatives, and it effectively cannot function as of about an hour and a half ago. So we are in gridlock mode, and all of the investigations technically have to come to a stop. I don't know if they really will, but they should if you follow regular order. And no action can go forward. You can't have committee hearings. You can't have votes on the floor. You can't move any legislation. You can't move the spending bills because we don't have a speaker. And Lord knows how long it's going to take. And Lord knows who's going to end up as speaker. But I have a feeling it's going to be somebody within the body. Traditionally, it has always been somebody within the body who could put both sides together. Who is that person? Who is that person? It is also true that you don't have to be a member of the House to become the Speaker of the House. That's a little known rule. It's never happened, but to my knowledge, I don't think it's ever happened. But it is true that You could go outside the House to find someone, some person who could hold all sides together. Sharon, thank you for the call. Greatly appreciated. John, calling in from Nashville. You're up next on the drive. John, what's your thought?
Hey, Brian, it's good to talk to you. Brian, I got a question for you. This may be crazy, but could they go back into the rooms, and do you think that McCarthy could do some arm twisting, and they could get some votes changed and get those people that didn't vote, find out who they are, get them back in?
Yeah.
And try and turn right around and put him back in. Gates is a fool. I mean, especially with what you just talked about with the lady before me, about closing down the inquiry hearings and all those things that we had momentum on. You know, it's a sad situation, really. I understand a little bit about the folks that are wanting to shut McCarthy down because of the budgetary items, but this wasn't the right time. And the other caller said talking about making us look like fools. Yep, that's it. That's our motive right now. It just doesn't seem to make any sense, does it?
Well, John, I agree with a lot of what you said there, and I don't know how it's going to get resolved. That's the thing, and really we don't know how long it's going to take to get it resolved. Does it get resolved tonight? Are they going to be up all night, casting votes? I mean, that's an entirely possible scenario.
What's your feeling on that?
I think they'll come back. I think they're going to come back at some point this evening. I mean, really, the Democrats don't have much to talk about. They go into their conference, they say, well, okay, we voted against him, and we'll vote against whoever they throw up there because we want Hakeem Jeffries. Even though we're not in the majority, we're going to vote for Hakeem Jeffries. The Republicans who are in the room right now, I bet you there's, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody comes out of that room with a bloody nose. I mean, they're going to be angry at a small group of people who has caused this problem because the vast majority of the Republican caucus still wants McCarthy. They may not have been completely thrilled with him, but they did not want to go through this battle. This is Matt Gaetz and 7 other Republicans.
Whenever you see McCarthy on doing a national interview in the morning shows, Sunday shows, or whatever, he's pretty well spoken, explains the positions pretty well. I mean, he's pretty clear on things. He may not be perfect, but who in the hell would want the job? I don't understand why you would want to put your life, go through that. I mean, what's Gates' answer? Who's he got?
Well, and that's just it. He said he likes Scalise. Who knows? Gates is a bomb thrower, and he has been a bomb thrower, and that's, sometimes a bomb thrower can be a good thing. Really, somebody who goes up there and stirs it up. In this particular case, my opinion, I'll set aside the analysis for a moment and give you my strong opinion. Gates has done a disservice to the Republican Party here. Now, maybe McCarthy was not going to be the perfect choice for everybody, but given the margins that are at play here, I thought he had done a fairly credible job. The thing about Gates was, it does seem that there's a personal animus here. Gates does not like McCarthy, and it may have to do with an ethics investigation against Gates. But one way or the other, there is a personal animosity here, and I have a feeling. I tell you what, I'd just love to be a fly on the wall inside that meeting right now, where Republicans are trying to figure out what happens next. So many great calls, so many good questions. Thank you so much. We're gonna take a break here and play some commercials. And if you're on the line, stay here. We may get a chance to put one more call through before we go to the news at the top of the hour. 51 minutes now past the hour.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. When we get to retirement, what do we want to do? We want to go and kick back, right? But we also want to take an income from our investment portfolios. And there are a lot of common myths that I hear about how do you take an income from an investment portfolio. One is that people will get into, this was really big a few years ago, really big, real estate investment trust. Real estate gets rented and it kicks off an income, and then you have some kind of dividend that's paid, and because the REIT has to pay out most of the dividend, it's a great way to take income in retirement. But what happens, like what happened recently, when all of a sudden the properties go unrented? What happens to your income? Bye-bye, it's gone. Another thing that I see is this: people buy stocks or stock mutual funds that are dividend paying, and what we'll do is we'll live off the dividends. Well, what is the dividend? It's part of the earnings of the company. So you got the earnings of the company, right? And then what happens is the company may pay out some of the dividend, and they call that a dividend when they pay it out, or they may retain some of it, and it's called retained earnings. Well, the problem is this: what if the company's earnings go down? Just like the real estate investment trust up here, what if the earnings go down? What happens to your dividend? It goes away. All of a sudden, it's bye-bye to your retirement income. So what do we want to do? We want to diversify way better. If you look at the academic research on investing and how to take income from a portfolio, quite often what it is saying, okay, I'm going to have some money in various asset classes. Large companies, small companies, value companies, growth companies, international companies, short-term bonds and intermediate bonds, and so on and so forth. And what I do is I look at these different areas of the market, and they have a historic return. And what happens if the portfolio does, this area of the market does better than this one? Well, in that particular year, I'm going to take income from this part of the portfolio. Then the next year, maybe this area does better than everything else. I'll take income from there. So what I'm doing is diversifying, which is an age-old concept. I mean, good grief, Nobel Prize winning concept of investing, and I actually apply it to taking income from a portfolio. So why is it that we often see this kind of stuff? It's because of the fees and the commissions and all of the incentives to sell you things that maybe aren't in your best interest. And a lot of advisors, you look at it, they aren't held to a fiduciary standard. In other words, they don't have to keep your best interest first. Paul Winkler, Inc., we hold ourselves voluntarily to that standard, and we actually disclose it in our disclosure brochures. So if you want to know more about what we do and learn more and educate along the way, go to paulwinkler.com. Set up a free 15-minute phone call so that you can learn more, become an educated investor. First step is easy. paulwinkler.com, free 15-minute phone call, and get started ASAP, because you can't afford to wait. You've got to make sure you get this right. You don't get a second shot.
A truly unprecedented time in the United States as Kevin McCarthy has been ousted, no longer Speaker of the House. A man in custody in Tennessee after a pregnant woman was shot and an unborn baby killed. And a Tennessee Democratic lawmaker has filed a federal lawsuit. We'll tell you more about it at 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, history being made. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Republicans voted against the Speaker, and he has been ousted. And the rest of the Republican caucus was supportive of Kevin McCarthy. So the Speaker has been removed. The first time this has happened in the history of the House of Representatives. So coming up in the next hour, we'll get busy on give you a good recap. If you're just getting into your car, then stick around because we're gonna give you everything that has happened this afternoon, a complete recap of this historic day in Washington, and then we'll get some other stories in today as also. There's other stuff we need to be telling you about, and that will all happen in the next hour. Right now, 59 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 86 degrees right now in Nashville. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report. They're on the way in 5 minutes. Right now in our nation's capital, Kevin McCarthy is just a congressman.
The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
And the House of Representatives voted to remove McCarthy 216 to 210. Jonathan Karl reports Democrats joined in with a few Republicans that supported the resolution put forth by Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz. This move now leaves Congress at a standstill.
But until the Speaker is elected, until somebody gets a majority of all those voting and a Speaker is elected, all they can do is vote again and vote again. They can adjourn for the evening, adjourn for the day, adjourn for the weekend, but they can do no business. No bills can be considered, nothing, until there is a Speaker of the House.
And this is the first time in U.S. history a House Speaker has had the gavel taken away. Crime in Tennessee a week ago. A pregnant woman was shot and her unborn baby was killed due to this incident. The man believed to be responsible has been arrested, 23-year-old Demarius Claybrooks Jr. The woman was sitting in front of a Nissan Maxima that drove off from Lewis Street and Lafayette Street after another woman in that same Nissan got out of the vehicle and sprayed bear spray at a group of people that were near a bus stop when they all drove off. That's when Claybrooks Jr. allegedly fired those shots. Officials believe the bear spray aspect of this story is related to a dispute between several women. And a Democratic state lawmaker in Nashville has filed a federal lawsuit claiming his rights were violated by a powerful Republican.
Nashville Democrat State Rep Justin Jones is suing the state and Tennessee Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton. Jones' lawsuit claims his expulsion from the House infringed upon his right to freedom of speech. Back in April, Jones and another Democrat member were expelled after being accused of violating House decorum by joining that anti-gun protest with a bullhorn on the floor of the House after the deadly Covenant School shooting. Jones and the other member who was expelled, Memphis Democrat Justin Pearson, were reelected to fill out the rest of their terms. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And Jones also argues he was forced to spend money and resources to mount a second election campaign after his expulsion. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good afternoon, everybody. 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to The Drive on a really incredibly busy news day. And history has been made in Washington, D.C. today, as for the first time in the history of the United States, in the history of Congress, a Speaker of the House has been removed from that position. Kevin McCarthy voted out today by a vote of 216 to 210. The irony of it is the vast majority of Republicans who serve in the Republican conference, including all but one members of the Tennessee delegation, supported McCarthy. But because of a deal that was cut in January, when we had to go through 15 rounds to find a speaker, any one person could come to the well of the House and ask for a vote to vacate the chair. And if you can find 4 or 5 other people who agree with you, you would have the power, essentially, to remove the speaker. And that's exactly what has happened today. Actually, we have a total of 8 members of the Republican caucus in the House of Representatives who voted against the speaker and effectively removed him from office this afternoon. It was led by Matt Gaetz of Florida. The other votes against the speaker was Andy Biggs of Arizona, Ken Buck of Colorado. The only vote from the Tennessee delegation was Tim Burchett of Tennessee, Eline Crane of Arizona, Bob Good of Virginia, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, and Matt Rosendale of Montana. All voted against the speaker, and he was effectively removed. So let's go through a little bit of what has happened this afternoon, because as I know, many people are just now getting to their cars. They're just headed home. Let me see if I can catch you up to date on what has happened. At one point today, McCarthy had to walk from his office down to the floor where everything was taking place. It really sort of a death march, because it looked like the numbers were going to go against him, and he knew it. And here's how that reporters caught up with him as he was walking from his office down to the floor of the House.
Still stand by the idea that you're going to be Speaker of the House tonight?
Yes. Look, I'm an optimist because I think there's no point in being anything else. I think this is a big honor to be able to be this. I think we've been very successful at different points. I just would not understand if there's a handful of Republicans who join Democrats who get to determine who's the Speaker of the House is. But it is what it is.
What about these Republicans who are opposed to you? I mean, what has gone on here? What do you think is their thinking? And
these are the same ones who opposed me before, and so they're turning the floor over to the Democrats.
And what does this say, the fact that you're the first speaker to face this since 1910? I know that Joe Cannon obviously moved this resolution on his own, but the fact that you're facing this, doesn't that say something about the speakership, or is that the narrow majority, or just the fact that you have some rambunctious...
no one thought about using it before until the Boehner part, and then Boehner didn't go through with me. I continue to work through it.
I know you don't like hypothetical questions, but if this goes to a speaker vote eventually, will you continue to stand for speaker vote after vote after vote?
Talk to me. We'll see what happens.
That doesn't sound like you're convinced.
What does this chaos say about Republicans right now?
Yeah, now, it is possible that they could come back. They're in conference now trying to decide what to do next, because nothing can happen on the floor of the House until a new speaker is chosen. Democrats are off caucusing in one room, Republicans in the other. And I bet the Republican caucus is a humdinger because there's a lot of angry people in that caucus right now. The vast majority of those who supported McCarthy upset with the 8 people who voted against him and removed him from that position. But nonetheless, here's what happened next. They go to the floor, and Gaetz offers his motion to vacate the chair. Immediately, a second motion is made to table that motion, and that failed. They weren't able to table it and put it off. So that meant they moved straight to the vote about whether or not they were going to remove Kevin McCarthy as Speaker, vacate the chair. The final vote on that was 216 to 210 with 9 people. There's 435 members of the House. I mean, it's actually very rare that you have actually 435 members. Members die, members are sick, members have to, go home on emergency business from time to time. But only 426 voted would mean that 9 did not vote. Some, I think, were in the room but withheld their vote. Be interesting to see what they do in the first round. One of those who was in the room and chose not to cast a ballot was Nancy Pelosi. Interesting. The former speaker herself. So there you have it. By a vote of 216 to 210, the motion to vacate the chair was adopted.
On this vote, the yeas are 216, the nays are 210. The resolution is adopted. The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
And with that gavel going down, Congress is basically frozen. Well, I mean, the Senate can continue to meet and do whatever it wants to do, but no bills can be passed by both bodies because nothing can happen in the House until a new speaker is chosen. How's that going to work out? Not clear. Matt Gaetz immediately rushed outside to meet with reporters on the steps of the House of Representatives.
But alone, is it to the benefit of you and to Donald Trump? It's the benefit of this country that we have a better Speaker of the House than Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy couldn't keep his word. He made an agreement in January regarding the way Washington would work, and he violated that agreement. We are $33 trillion in debt. We are facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits. We face a de-dollarization globally that will crush Americans, working class Americans. Kevin McCarthy is a feature of the swamp. He has risen to power by collecting special interest money and redistributing that money in exchange for favors. We are breaking the fever now, and we should elect a speaker who's better.
So if not Kevin McCarthy, then who? Then who? You said last night that Steve Scalise was a name that you floated to potentially be speaker. Where do things stand right now? If not McCarthy, then who? Well,
the stages of grief, I think, are in progress right now with some of my colleagues. I think there was a stage of denial, and I've certainly experienced a good amount of their anger, and now we appear to be headed toward bargaining. I think the world of Steve Scalise. I think he'd make a phenomenal speaker.
So they're in a closed-door meeting right now trying to figure all that out. Steve Scalise going through some health problems. Steve Scalise is someone who is widely admired by many people in the House of Representatives, and that's a name that might come up. It is entirely possible that the name of Kevin McCarthy will be put in nomination yet again. And if he can find 218 votes, it's over. He would retain his position as Speaker of the House. Is that likely? I don't know. Is it possible? I don't know. The wheeling and dealing is begun, but we don't know. It is also a fact. Many people don't know this, but you do not have to be a member of the House to be the Speaker of the House. So it is entirely possible, although it's never happened in the history of the House, to my knowledge. You could go to the outside and find somebody who to be the Speaker of the House. If he can get 218 votes, that person would become, he or she would become the Speaker of the House. It does not seem likely to me that the Democrats will be able to prevail in all of this. It just doesn't seem like that is impossible, that the Republicans will not allow that to happen. They don't have 218 votes on their own. But as it stands right now, the House of Representatives, for the first time in the history of that body, has ejected a Speaker of the House, and the body is now they're reeling. As the folks at thehill.com put it, the House is now in uncharted territory. How this thing gets resolved is anybody's guess. What a day it has been. What a day it has been. We'll continue to watch, and as there are new developments this afternoon, I mean, it is entirely possible, and Mac Morey's in the newsroom, so he'll let me know if he sees something there while I'm on the air doing other things. It's entirely possible that we will have a situation where they come out and try to find a speaker tonight. And they might try a couple of test ballots to see if somebody can emerge with 218 votes. The Democrats will always nominate Hakeem Jeffries. And now the question is, who will the Republicans bring forward? Who could bring our whole party together? I will tell you, I think it's unlikely, but the name Donald Trump has been mentioned as a potential Speaker of the House. I don't think that will happen. The House has never gone outside, although it can. A name that has been floated around in addition to Scalise would be Mark Green of Tennessee, who has been a staunch supporter of Kevin McCarthy, but a man who has a great deal of respect across all strata of Republicans in the House of Representatives. That's a name that I have heard floated. It would be interesting to see whether that could happen or not. So we are, as the Hill put it, in uncharted territory, trying to figure out exactly how this might go, how this might be resolved. In the meantime, there are other things that we need to cover, and other things that we're going to sort of return to regular order until the House comes out of its caucus and returns to action, we're going to move on to some other stories. And coming up here in just a few moments, we'll do what has always been a fan favorite. We'll move into Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports. But understand that breaking news takes precedent. Breaking news changes everything. And if there are new developments inside this hour, we will immediately stop whatever we're doing and go back to them as this drama continues to unfold. A historic day in the House of Representatives, a historic day in the history of the United States, as the things that have occurred this afternoon have never happened before in the entire history of this country. The last person to call for a vacation of the chair was Joe Cannon, who was Speaker, and he called for it himself. There were people in his party who were not pleased with the way he was conducting business, and so he decided he would call for a vote to vacate the chair on his own, and then he got reelected Speaker with the help of the party of the opposite party. So he got help from Democrats. There was no help for Democrats today for Kevin McCarthy of California. Might there be going forward? Hard to know. What will happen to the 9 people who did not vote today? How will this be resolved? This is a day to stay tuned right here to Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Right now, 20 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Let me tell you about the folks over at DT McCall. They've been around for more than 100 years in Middle Tennessee, and you know what? You don't make it that long without having a reputation for treating people right. What do you need for your home? Do you need appliances? Oh, they got a lot of them. A great selection on display. Furniture, a great selection on display. And in fact, that's one of the great things about DT McCall's. When you go to one of their convenient locations in Middle Tennessee, you can walk around and you'll just see room after room after room after room. And it helps you make decisions. I know that Cabana Wife and I really struggled with what kind of furniture we wanted for our new home, but we immediately found exactly what we were looking for when we went to DT McCall's. Found it in a matter of seconds. If you need furniture, if you need appliance, you need a mower for your yard, although it's, getting into the fall season. Maybe you want to get one, be ready for spring. Whatever you need, you're going to find it at DT McCall's, and they have a reputation for doing everything they can to sell products that are made and manufactured right here in Middle Tennessee to keep those dollars local. A lot to like about this company. Won't you find out about their 5 convenient locations by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.
There is no speaker in the House of Representatives. Kevin McCarthy's chair now vacated for the first time ever in United States history. Plus, in Williamson County, the Harpeth River, it's an orange-red color right now. We'll tell you why. 5:30 here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, Mac will have all of the news here that has been breaking this afternoon, and we'll give you more in just a few minutes. But let's take a break here. We need a palate cleanser. We've for 2.5 hours now, we've been cranking on the same story, and it's time for Mac Murray's Wide World of Sports.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right, the Mac Murray's Wide World of Sports with your host now. Here's Mac Murray. Yay! The crowd goes wild.
Hello.
Yeah. Well, listen, Mac, we're glad that you're back today.
Me too.
We've been wanting to talk about your prediction with regard to the two-tone blue in this last game. I understand where the prediction came from. It seemed very sound to me that, you were talking about a team that had been struggling and didn't have much of an O-line. The thinking was it might be a challenging game for the Titans. It turned out to be a route in the other direction, actually. Yeah. Were you surprised?
Complete clinic. We talked about Titans, like you said, struggling team, struggling O-line. Bengals, struggling team, struggling O-line. And I picked the completely wrong team to overcome those issues. And way to go. I'm glad I was wrong. Tennessee Titans, a complete clinic on Sunday, 27-3 against the Cincinnati Bengals, and just a much-needed win. Lots of questions began to be answered. Now, obviously, not all solutions, not all problems are solved or found a solution in one game, but you saw the offensive line at least provide a little bit of time for Ryan Tannehill, and you saw offensive coordinator Tim Kelly really make it a point for Tannehill to say, hey, you've got 2.5 seconds, no more than that. Get the ball out of your hands, and it doesn't matter if it's a 3-yard throw, doesn't matter if it's a 20-yard throw. Get it out. Let's get some completions and just slowly matriculate the ball down the field, create some first downs. And that's what they were able to do. 23 first downs, 8 for 13 on third down. They have been a bottom 5 third down team both last year and the beginning of this year, Brian. So for them to have actually some efficiency on third down, which is due to those first and second down play calling being, more apt to success for the Titans. I saw the picture started to be painted. You started to finally see, what was on paper in the offseason, kind of those things like, oh, here's Derrick Henry, a new offensive weapon, and DeAndre Hopkins, some real dogs on the defensive side. You started to see those things come to fruition for 4 quarters on the football field. It was fun.
Right. Well, so, I'm trying to get a sense of, because I was preoccupied with other business, and I could not watch the game, but I did read everything I could read about it, and it seemed to me that the offensive line did its job, and that Tannehill ran up 240 yards of offense. That's pretty good. And was it the O-line getting its act together, or was it that Tannehill finally found a rhythm? As you say, it's so easy for us to sit here as armchair quarterbacks and talk about Tannehill's not getting it done. It's incredibly difficult to try to check all of your options in about 2 seconds and to effectively deliver the ball to the right option enough to run up 240 yards of offense.
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think at the beginning it was, hey, we're going to do these play action 5-6 step dropbacks with Ryan Tannehill. And this offensive line is maybe later on in the season when they kind of get better and refine their skills together as a unit, but they're just not going to be able to block for that long. They're not going to be able to do those sorts of plays. It's just not going to happen this season, at least for the beginning of this year. And so Tim Kelly, Tannehill, and those guys up front said, okay, let's do what we can do. Let's do some quick reads, some quick slants, little screen passes. Let's get some runs to the outside with Derrick Henry. And you saw the offensive line just kind of come together, more 2 tight end sets, and just use the resources that you're given. Not every team has a Philadelphia Eagles, 5 Pro Bowl, All-Pro offensive linemen up front. You got to do what you can with what you're given with. And, speaking of the king, he arrived. 22 carries, 122 yards.
And a touchdown throw.
And a passing touchdown, which is unbelievable. He's had 4 passing touchdowns in his career, which is quite insane. And we've been talking about the records for all-time leading rushers in Tennessee Titans history, Brian. Derrick Henry did eclipse, I believe it was Eddie George. for the second in the all-time leading rushers list for Tennessee Titans. So good job by Derrick Henry. And this was without second-year wide receiver Treylon Burks. Missed due to an injury, and they were still able to have this sort of offensive performance without one of their better weapons. So I liked what I saw from the Titans, and they trounced a Bengals team and took advantage of their woes, which is a lot of the same with the Titans. An offensive line that's completely struggling and a quarterback that, may be better than Ryan Tannehill when healthy, but let's just face it, Joe Burrow did not look even close to healthy on Sunday, and the Titans took advantage of it.
Yeah, well, listen, it's one of the things that I've noticed since I've come to Nashville and started paying more attention to the Titans than I did before is that this is a team that tends to get its act together a little slowly in the early going.
Yes.
I mean, this is not something new. It takes them 2 or 3 games to sort of find their rhythm. And I bet we're on this. I have a prediction I'll make,
Love it.
As somebody's a casual observer. I think we're probably going to go through a string of wins. Because I think we've gotten through the early going where there were problems and they figured out how to resolve them. I would suspect that this team gaining confidence will win several games in a row.
I love that. And looking at the schedule, you got Colts, Ravens, Falcons, Steelers are the next 4 games. The Ravens are going to be by far that toughest game, but you get them at home. Those 3 other games, Brian, Titans should come out on top. I'm excited about this team again. We talked about a resurgence of hope for the fans was needed on Sunday at Nissan, and they did just that with a resounding 27-3 win.
All right, well, we'll leave it right there. Take off your sports hat, put on your news hat. It's time for the news now, and we'll give you an update on this remarkable day in Washington right after we get through with the news with Mac Morey. It's now 31 minutes past the hour.
.531, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 85 degrees in Nashville. Full forecast, latest traffic report headed your way in 5 minutes. Andy Field gives us the latest in the House of Representatives as Kevin McCarthy no longer holds the title of Speaker.
Something that never happened before in Congress until today.
The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy losing his job in a narrow vote of no confidence by members of his own party, led by fellow Republican Matt Gaetz.
He prevailed in that Speaker contest because he made an agreement to fulfill certain commitments to make this an open and honest process, and he has failed to meet those commitments, and that's why we are here.
ABC's Jonathan Karl on what happens next.
Until the Speaker is elected, until somebody gets a majority of all those voting and a Speaker is elected, all they can do is vote again and vote again. They can adjourn for the evening, adjourn for the day, adjourn for the weekend, but they can do no business. No bills can be considered, nothing, until there is a Speaker of the House.
In Williamson County, parts of the Harpeth River have turned red, but it's no threat to public health or the environment. The sheriff's office say that the city of Franklin's Office of Water Management Department is conducting a dye test. And the test by a Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation approved contractor turned what's usually a greenish clear body of water to blood orange. That dye is non-hazardous and there's no need for concern, according to county officials. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
I want to talk to you about Nashville Gold and Coin. It's an interesting company. They sell a gold coin. That they do gold, silver, bullion, and they can also specialize in appraising coins. And you probably don't have any idea how much some of those old coins you have laying around might be worth. I've told you before, I brought in a few coins and it turned out to be worth $1,652. But let's talk about, the precious metals. All the money that you have in your bank, how do you get, what do you get when the bank collapses if something were to happen like Silicon Valley Bank or Signature Bank? While it isn't practical to pull all your money out of banks and investments, doesn't it make sense to have some of your wealth in real, hard, physical assets like gold or silver? See, rising prices you hear about on the news and feel every time you make a purchase. How do you protect yourself against inflation? It's precious metals. They have a long track record as a store of value and their ability to preserve wealth and purchasing power over time. So if you need to think about adding a little gold or silver to your portfolio, I want you to think about Nashville Gold and Coin. It's the place I do business. It's the place I recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and a real precious metals education. Listen, learn more by going to their website and set up a one-on-one consultation today. NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. It is 38 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. I know people are getting into their car this time of day, and they may not be aware of all the things that have happened, so I like to recap the breaking news of the afternoon, which has been quite considerable. House of Representatives does not have a Speaker of the House at the moment. A vote was taken today to vacate the chair, brought by Matt Gaetz of Florida. He got 8 people to vote with him, and that was enough to kick Kevin McCarthy out of the speakership in the House of Representatives. What is happening at the moment? Democrats are meeting. Republicans are meeting behind closed doors, trying to decide what happens going next. I mean, the Democrats, it's a pretty simple meeting. They get together and say, okay, everybody, when you vote for Hakeem Jeffries. However, they don't have the votes to make him speaker. The Republicans now have a real battle on their hands because there's a small handful of Republican conservatives led by Matt Gaetz. I'll give you the names of those who voted to kick, really effectively controlled the decision to kick McCarthy out. It's Matt Gaetz of Florida, Andy Biggs of Arizona, Eli Crane of Arizona, Ken Buck of Colorado. Tim Burchett is the only member of the Tennessee delegation that voted to oust McCarthy. Bob Good of Virginia, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, and Matt Rosendale of Montana all voted to kick Kevin McCarthy out of the speakership. Final vote, 216 to 210, with 9 people not voting. So there it is. It happened today, and it looks like nothing can happen now until the House of Representatives decides who is going to be the speaker. No action can take place. No hearings can take place. No business can take place on the floor. And as far as passing any legislation, with the House out of commission, the Senate can't really pass a bill either, because one body cannot pass a bill without the other body. So that's where we are right now. Never happened before in the history of the House of Representatives. The last time there was a motion to vacate the chair, 1910, 113 years ago, and that was brought by Speaker of the House Joe Cannon. He brought the motion himself because there were people grumbling about the way he handled he had a reputation of being rather dictatorial, and he was a very hardline speaker. And a lot of people grumbled about that, and so he brought his own motion to vacate, and with the help of the people in the opposite party, he was able to actually survive that motion that he brought forward. So What happens next is not clear. How in the world do you find that one person who can heal the rift within the party? I mean, the Republican Party in the House, clearly a body that is divided against itself, and as the old saying goes, a body divided against itself cannot stand. So who do you find to sort of heal the cracks, to heal the rift, to try to bring this thing back together? In the meantime, all of the investigations that we were doing into Joe Biden and Hunter Biden on hold. Anything that was going forward to try to hold the Biden administration accountable in the form of hearings and investigations, that's all on hold until this gets resolved. And remember, in January, when Kevin McCarthy became the Speaker of the House, 15 rounds. It was 15 rounds. So will we have votes tonight? Not clear. Will they pick it up tomorrow? Not clear. Who is that one person that Republicans can coalesce around that would actually, make this thing work? Not clear at all. So we continue to watch it. We continue to see what's going on. And in the meantime, it's just a little chaotic because as I love it, the folks at thehill.com says the House is an uncharted territory. Never been there before. One other story that I want to share with you about this, and we'll move on to some other news, is that, as I said, Tim Burchett of Tennessee, I think he's the 2nd congressional district, is the only Tennessee delegation member who voted against McCarthy. And here's a story from thehill.com. Tennessee Republican McCarthy's condescending remark on faith sealed his vote. Tim Burchett said a condescending comment from former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy about the lawmaker preying on the vote to remove McCarthy from office sealed his decision to support the ousting. He just said something that was very condescending to me. It really doesn't matter at this point, but at that point I thought to myself, well, that pretty much sealed it right there. Burchett backed McCarthy's speakership bid in all 15 votes back in January, but their recent conversation tipped the scales, leaving him as one of 8 GOP members to buck their speaker. I was going down 2 paths. I said 1 was keeping my friendship with Kevin McCarthy, and 2 was my conscience. And so my conscience won, and it served me pretty well. And I said I would be praying about it, and I do. I asked God for wisdom. Then the first thing out of his mouth on the phone was something very condescending. I thought, well, I'm going to listen to him. I'm glad he's calling. I'm sorry it's right here at the last hour, but I'm going to listen to him. And there was something condescending about my religious beliefs. And I just thought, I don't need that. And that answered my question right there. The quality and the character there, maybe that's the wrong thing to judge it on, but that's what I did. This is Tim Burchett, a Republican from Tennessee, the Republican who voted, only Republican that voted against Kevin McCarthy and ousted him as Speaker this afternoon. So much going on. Now, we don't want to leave out other news that is happening, and one of the things that happened today is that the trial of Donald Trump has continued, and the judge has imposed a partial gag order on in this case. The New York judge presiding over the Trump Organization trial, according to Fox News, imposed a partial gag order to prevent all parties from engaging in any verbal attacks against court staff after former President Trump criticized a member of the judge's office on social media. Judge Arthur Engoron on Tuesday afternoon issued an order that he said applies to both defense and New York Attorney General Letitia James. It applies only to verbal attacks on the staff. Engoron said the order came after a defendant, Trump, posted to social media account a disparaging, untrue, and personally identifying post about a member of my staff. Without naming the former president, Engoron was referring to now-deleted Trump post on his Truth Social account about Engoron's law clerk, Allison Greenfield. Trump alleged in a Truth Social post that Greenfield had a relationship with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and the post also contained a photo. Schumer's girlfriend, Allison R. Greenfield, is running this case against me. How disgraceful, Trump posted. The case should be dismissed immediately. Trump deleted the post at the beginning of the lunch recess. So that is going on. But this guy, Arthur Engoron, is interesting. And the question comes is, is he in the tank against Trump? Because he's made some rulings against Trump that raised a few eyebrows in some circles about whether or not the judge has gone too far against defendant Trump. Now, this is basically a case about whether or not Trump inflated the values of his properties in order to get other loans. A lot of people look at it and say the judge doesn't have a good sense of what real estate is all about and how it works, and neither does Letitia James, the Attorney General. But there is this as well. Judge Arthur Engoron was once interviewed, and he said the following, that he doesn't care sometimes if the jury gets it right or the jury gets it wrong, because he has the ability in a civil case to come in and override the verdict of the jury. And here is exactly what he said.
Juries get it wrong a lot. That's my own opinion. I do only civil trials, personal injury cases, contract disputes. But I've had situations where, like, oh my heaven's sake, how could they have thought that? Well, I have a tool that I can deal with that. It's called judgment notwithstanding the verdict. I can say there is no possible way that a reasonable jury would have reached that conclusion. And all right, am I following the law or am I making law? Okay, I'm following law. I'm an impartial referee, but it's hard to factor out my own emotions.
Well, yeah, he's admitting that he can override the jury and that he will not be able to factor out his emotion in the case, which I think gives this judge an inflated sense of exactly how much power he has in this case. So watch this judge very closely. I mean, I think Trump is right to grouse about this judge and some of the rulings that have come down, which don't seem to make much sense to people who truly understand the business of real estate. One other big story out of Washington today, Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar. He's a Democrat from Texas. He's been in the news because he's very much been against the Biden administration in their efforts to, he wants them to close down the border, and he's been very critical of the Biden administration for not doing that, even though he is a Democrat. Well, he returned to Washington. He has a house not far from the Naval Yards, which are just a few minutes away from Capitol Hill. And as he went home, he was carjacked. Here is the congressman describing what happened.
Yeah, I was just coming into my place. Three guys came out of nowhere, and they pointed guns at me. I do have a black belt, but I recognize when you got three guns. I looked at one with a gun, another with a gun, one behind me. So they said they wanted my car. I said, sure, you got to keep calm in those situations. And then they took off. They recovered the car. They recovered everything. What really got me upset was they took my sushi. But anyway, that's something else. And they did recover the sushi after all. But anyway, I do want to thank the Capitol Police, and I certainly want to thank the Metro Police. I'm a big law enforcement person. I got three brothers in law enforcement, so I certainly appreciate the good work that the police did last night. Everything was recovered, my phone, my car, and everything.
And including his sushi. He got his sushi back. I'm really glad. I mean, would you eat the sushi after it had been gone? I don't know. Sushi has a shelf life,
Especially if it's been sitting in a car like that.
I mean, I don't know. I think if he got it back within 2 hours, I guess it was probably, I'd probably go ahead and eat it. But why this is important is the District of Columbia has become a crime-ridden city. Ladies and gentlemen, I always believe that every American should go to the nation's capital at some point, see the sights, go to the archives, go to the Capitol, go and look at the White House, see the monuments. I think it's a wonderful trip for anyone. But if you want to know my personal opinion, based on what I'm hearing from my friends back there right now, I wouldn't go right now. It is a mean place. It's become a very mean city, like Baltimore, like Philadelphia, like other major cities that are controlled by blue Democrats. I would suggest maybe right now is not the best time to go to our nation's capital. 51 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. How are you faring in the rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed as you head into retirement. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call. Here's the number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. You have nothing to lose except for all the worry. So get started today. Again, the number, 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. Again, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. When we get to retirement, what do we want to do? We want to go and kick back, right? But we also want to take an income from our investment portfolios. And there are a lot of common myths that I hear about how do you take an income from an investment portfolio. One is that people will get into, this was really big a few years ago, really big, real estate investment trust. Now, real estate gets rented and it kicks off an income, and then you have some kind of dividend that's paid, and because the REIT has to pay out most of the dividend, it's a great way to take income in retirement. But what happens, like what happened recently, when all of a sudden the properties go unrented? What happens to your income? Bye-bye, it's gone. Another thing that I see is this: people buy stocks or stock mutual funds that are dividend paying, and what we'll do is we'll live off the dividends. Well, what is the dividend? It's part of the earnings of the company. So you got the earnings of the company, right? And then what happens is the company may pay out some of the dividend, and they call that a dividend when they pay it out, or they may retain some of it, and it's called retained earnings. Well, the problem is this: what if the company's earnings go down? Just like the real estate investment trust up here, what if the earnings go down? What happens to your dividend? It goes away. All of a sudden, it's bye-bye to your retirement income. So what do we want to do? We want to diversify way better. If you look at the academic research on investing and how to take income from a portfolio, quite often what it is saying, okay, I'm going to have some money in various asset classes. Large companies, small companies, value companies, growth companies, international companies, short-term bonds and intermediate bonds, and so on and so forth. And what I do is I look at these different areas of the market. They have a historic return. And what happens if the portfolio does, this area of the market does better than this one? Well, in that particular year, I'm going to take income from this part of the portfolio. Then the next year, maybe this area does better than everything else. I'll take income from there. So what I'm doing is diversifying, which is an age-old concept. I mean, good grief, Nobel Prize winning concept of investing, and I actually apply it to taking income from a portfolio. So why is it that we often see this kind of stuff? It's because of the fees and the commissions and all of the incentives to sell you things that maybe aren't in your best interest. And a lot of advisors, you look at it, they aren't held to a fiduciary standard. In other words, they don't have to keep your best interest first. Paul Winkler Inc., we hold ourselves voluntarily to that standard, and we actually disclose it in our disclosure brochures. So if you want to know more about what we do and learn more and educate along the way, go to paulwinkler.com. Set up a free 15-minute phone call so that you can learn more, become an educated investor. First step is easy. paulwinkler.com, free 15-minute phone call, and get started ASAP, because you can't afford to wait. You've got to make sure you get this right. You don't get a second shot.
Kevin McCarthy out as Speaker of the House, an update on a crime story in Tennessee, and a federal lawsuit filed against Tennessee from a state lawmaker. Those stories and more at 6 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, I have some statistics that show just where our real estate market is here in Middle Tennessee. These are year-to-year numbers. So this is September 23 compared to a year ago. New listings down 9.1%. Pending sales down 28.7%. The number of closed sales down 23.8%. The number of days on market up a great deal. The average number of days a property is on sale, is on the market, is 30 days. And the average sale price up still pretty high, up 5.6% over year to year. The average sales price in the Middle Tennessee area, $505,897. So about $500,000 is the average price of a new home in Middle Tennessee right now. It is now 59 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let me tell you, if I could, about Grace Point Healthcare. They deliver medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing, so you'll know how much it will cost before the care is actually delivered. Best known for their Smart Care plans, $69 a month is where they start. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. They treat families, the entire family, even newborns, and they offer family plans as well. See, the idea here is that you marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan that you may already have, and at the end of the day, you could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, we take our time with each patient. We see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. We treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. They have COVID testing and treatment. There's some really interesting therapies that could help you get over it quickly. So if you think you have COVID, go get tested and talk to them about the treatments. Grace Point Healthcare, Main Street in Franklin, 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
6:01, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 83 degrees right now in Music City. Latest forecast and a latest traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. Right now in our nation's capital, Kevin McCarthy, just a congressman.
History on Capitol Hill.
Office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
The House voting to remove Kevin McCarthy as Speaker, 216 to 210.
8 Republican defectors joined with a unified Democratic caucus to oust Kevin McCarthy. Given that this ouster was unprecedented, the path forward isn't certain. There's no clear consensus choice for Republicans. The leader of the rebellion, Florida's Matt Gaetz, tells reporters,
We are not at the end of this process, okay? At most, we're approaching halftime.
For now, North Carolina Republican Patrick McHenry holds the gavel temporarily. A new election for Speaker must be held on the House floor. Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
Democrats are hoping that more moderate Republicans will support an effort to elect Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin.
They are registering Democrat. They're coming over to the Democratic side, and I would hope we could find a half dozen of them in Congress to come over to our side.
And this just in from Channel 4 on a crime story here in Tennessee. A 12-year-old was arrested on Tuesday after allegedly threatening to commit a mass shooting at the school. Police said a student tip led to the arrest of a 12-year-old who made a threat to fellow classmates at Dew Point Tyler Middle School. That 7th grader allegedly said that he'd bring a gun and commit a mass shooting at that school. The middle schooler was charged in juvenile court with making a threat of mass violence and false reporting. And MNPD made a statement saying, quote, threats against schools, special events, and businesses are taken very seriously. Another crime story in the volunteer state. A week ago, a pregnant woman was shot and her unborn baby was killed due to an incident. The man believed to be responsible has been arrested, 23-year-old Demarius Claybrooks Jr. That woman was in the front seat of a Nissan Maxima that drove off from Lewis Street and Lafayette Street after another woman in that Nissan got out of the vehicle, sprayed bear spray at a group of people near a bus stop before getting back in. They then drove off, and that's when Claybrooks Jr. allegedly fired those shots. Officials believe the bear spray is part of the bear spray aspect of the story is related to a dispute between several women. And a Democratic state lawmaker in Nashville has filed a federal lawsuit claiming his rights were violated by a powerful Republican.
Nashville Democrat State Rep Justin Jones is suing the state and Tennessee Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton. Jones' lawsuit claims his expulsion from the House infringed upon his right to freedom of speech. Back in April, Jones and another Democrat member were expelled after being accused of violating House decorum by joining that anti-gun protest with a bullhorn on the floor of the House after the deadly Covenant School shooting. Jones and the other member who was expelled, Memphis Democrat Justin Pearson, were reelected to fill out the rest of their terms. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And Jones also argues he was forced to spend money and resources to mount a second election campaign after his expulsion. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
And with that, the House of Representatives has broken new ground in the history of that institution. There is no speaker to the House of Representatives. The first time this has happened in the history of that organization. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to The Drive. It's been a remarkable day on Capitol Hill as the vote was taken to oust Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House. And now the question is, what happens next? Before we go into all of the speculation and all of the things that might happen, perhaps a good time for us to sort of recap for those who are just getting into their car and heading home tonight. So first of all, let me take you to the hallway between the Speaker's office and the House of Representatives. There's a little statue there of Will Rogers, and reporters hang out there because they know the Speaker has to come by there. It was almost as if it was a death march for McCarthy. He knew as he was headed down to the House floor that things did not look good for him, that he was effectively just a few minutes away from being removed as Speaker of the House.
Still stand by the idea that you're going to be Speaker of the House tonight?
Yes, look, I'm an optimist because I think there's no point of being anything else. I think this is a big honor to be able to be this. I think we've been very successful at different points. I just would not understand if there's a handful of Republicans who join Democrats who get to determine who's the Speaker of the House is. But it is what it is.
What about these Republicans who are opposed to you? I mean, what has gone on here? What do you think is their thinking? And
these are the same ones who opposed me before, and so they're turning the floor over to the Democrats.
And what does this say, the fact that you're the first speaker to face this since 1910? I know that Joe Cannon obviously moved this resolution on his own, but the fact that you're facing this, doesn't that say something about the speakership, or is that the narrow majority, or just the fact that you have some rambunctious...
No one thought about using it before until the Boehner part, and then Boehner didn't go through with me. I continue to work through it.
I know you don't like hypothetical questions, but if this goes to a speaker vote eventually, will you continue to stand for speaker vote after vote after vote?
Talk to me. We'll see what happens.
That doesn't sound like you're convinced.
What does this chaos say about Republicans right now?
Well, and he walked away at that point. By the way, the word that is being reported in some quarters, a number of news organizations saying that McCarthy has said he does not want to stand for re-election. So apparently his name will not be submitted. More, though, as the day progressed. So he goes to the floor. The first thing that happens is Matt Gaetz pulls up a motion to vacate the speakership. And immediately there was a call to table that measure and perhaps put the vote off.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Resolution 757, resolved that the office of the Speaker of the House of Representatives is hereby declared to be vacant.
The resolution qualifies as a question of the privileges of the House. For what purpose does the gentleman from Oklahoma seek recognition?
Motion to table at the desk.
The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Cole of Oklahoma moves to lay the resolution on the table.
The question is on the motion to lay the resolution on the table. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Gentlelady from Pennsylvania.
Yes, we would request the yeas and nays on this vote.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. Sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
Now, if that had gone well for McCarthy, he could have put off, with the events of the day, but it did not go well. The motion to table failed, which meant they immediately moved to the next item, which was, the vacation of the speakership. Matt Gaetz on one side and the vast majority of the Republican conference on the other side. So then the hour of debate was divided into both sides, and you heard from supporters of Kevin McCarthy, and then you heard a lot of Matt Gaetz. Here's a little sample. For example, when Jim Jordan stood in support of Speaker McCarthy.
We have passed the bills we told the American people we would pass. 87,000 IRS agents, that bill passed. Parents' Bill of Rights, that bill passed. Energy legislation passed. Border security Immigration enforcement legislation, the strongest bill ever to pass the Congress, passed earlier this year. We have done what we told them we were going to do. We can't help it the Senate won't take up those good common sense bills. They'll have to answer to the American people come Election Day. Oversight. We have done the oversight that we're supposed to do. Because of our oversight, we know that parents were targeted by the Department of Justice. Because of our oversight, we know that 51 former intel officials misled the country weeks before the most important election we have. And because of our oversight, the Disinformation Governance Board at the Department of Homeland Security is gone. Because of our oversight, the memo attacking pro-life Catholics has been rescinded. Because of our oversight, unannounced visits to Americans' home by the Internal Revenue Service has stopped. That happened under Speaker McCarthy. And on the third one, on this side of it, we know there's a big old ugly bill coming at the end of the year, all kinds of spending, all kinds of garbage in it. We're still in that fight. Frankly, to Matt's point, we don't know how that one's going to shake out. But we do know this. We do know this. On Saturday, we didn't take the Senate's bill. They tried to send over and shove it down our throats on Saturday. We didn't take that bill. And it was a tough position he was in. There were 5 options on the table last week. Option 1 was to send a long-term CR over there that would have leveraged the 1% cut, something a bunch of us voted for, both parties. Couldn't get the votes for that one. Second option was to focus on the one issue the country now is completely focused on, the border issue. We couldn't get the votes for that one either. But when the Senate tried to send us that bill, he said no to it. I think the Speaker has kept his word. I know my colleagues and friends are saying different. I think he has kept his word on those 3 things that we talked about on January 3rd, and frankly, that entire week. He has kept his word. I think we should keep him as Speaker. I yield back.
Matt Gaetz responded.
Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Yeah, the problem with my friend from Ohio's argument is that many of the bills he referenced as having passed are not law. We are on a fast track to an omnibus bill, and it is difficult to champion oversight when House Republicans haven't even sent a subpoena to Hunter Biden. So it's hard to make the argument that oversight is the reason to continue when it sort of looks like failure theater.
Gaetz kept saying that there was a secret deal that had been cut by the Speaker with Democrats to get a vote on Ukraine funding.
And it was concerning to me to hear of news of a secret deal on Ukraine funding that would have log-rolled more money with Ukraine with our southern border. Now, how offensive is that to our Customs and Border Patrol, to our ICE, to the people that are suffering as a consequence of our border, that some of my colleagues are only willing to stand up and fight for our border if they could send billions to Ukraine to fund their border too? Well, I've had enough of that, and that's why I brought this motion to vacate.
All right, so there you have it, a bit of the back and forth that occurred during the debate. And then they called for the vote, and it was a roll call vote. It took about, I don't know, the better part of 30, 40 minutes to go through all 435 names. And at the end of the day, there were 216 votes to get rid of McCarthy. There were 210 votes to keep him. 9 votes that were either not present or chose not to cast their votes today. And then, it became official. Kevin McCarthy was removed as Speaker of the House of Representatives.
On this vote, the yeas are 216. The nays are 210. The resolution is adopted. The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
Gaetz rushed outside to meet with reporters.
Is it to the benefit of you and to Donald Trump?
It's the benefit of this country that we have a better Speaker of the House than Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy couldn't keep his word. He made an agreement in January regarding the way Washington would work, and he violated that agreement. We are $33 trillion.
And that was the end of that. So now, where are we? Both sides decided to go back into conference. They adjourned subject to call of the chair, and both sides decided that they would go to conference. And for the Democrats, it's an easy matter. All they're going to do is say, all right, when it comes time to put up for, we all vote for Hakeem Jeffries. For the Republicans, they've got to find somebody who can heal the rift within this party, somebody that would be acceptable to the vast majority of the conference that supported McCarthy, and the 8 people who voted against him. Yes, you need to understand that this whole thing happened because there were 8 Republicans who decided they would vote against the speaker. Matt Gaetz, Andy Biggs of Arizona, Ken Buck of Colorado. The only person in the Tennessee delegation that voted against the speaker was Tim Burchett of Tennessee. Eli Crane of Arizona voted against him. Bob Good, Nancy Mace, and Matt Rosendale of Montana all voted against the speaker, and that's all that it took because the speaker could only afford to lose 5, and there's 8 right there. So who will the person be? Not at all clear. It will not be apparently Kevin McCarthy. News organizations now reporting that McCarthy has decided he does not want to stand for renomination. And this just in, the speaker, former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, is set to address folks in about 10 minutes from now. It's 7:30 Eastern Time, 6:30 Central Time. So we'll try to bring that to you as it happens. An unbelievable day with tremendous implications. Right now, the House of Representatives cannot function until they find a new speaker. Who will that person be? That is the question of the hour. 21 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Have you heard about lab-grown diamonds? Here's a word of advice for you. Don't buy a lab-grown diamond until you talk to my friends over at Genesis Diamonds. Genesis will give you the secrets behind this new product and make sure that you are protected if you decide to buy one. Genesis has non-commissioned experts, and they will teach you the difference between a natural diamond and a lab-grown diamond so you can make the smartest, most informed decision. One important fact you will learn is how some jewelers are grossly overcharging for lab-grown stones. There are some insane markups going on, and you need to be aware. At some stores, they're selling a 4-carat round lab-grown diamond stud earrings at about $9,000. But at Genesis, you can get them for about half that price with better quality diamonds. I said half the price. Bottom line, you need to get informed. You need to get a second opinion. You need to be a careful and informed customer. And that's what Genesis promises. They are transparent, and they will teach you all you need to know about making a smart buy, just like they have always done. Genesis Diamonds, your trusted advisor when it comes to the complex world of diamonds. Green Hills and Cool Springs, the official jeweler of the Tennessee Titans. It is 26 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Any minute now, we are expecting that Kevin McCarthy, the former Speaker of the House, will come to the podium in the press gallery, and he will talk about the events of the day, 7:30 Eastern Time, 6:30 local time, Middle Tennessee time. But I got to tell you, these things do have the tendency to slip. They're not always promptly starting on time. So what a day it has been. Again, nothing can happen in the House of Representatives until a speaker is chosen. What will McCarthy have to say? I don't know. It'll be interesting, but there's been a big demand for him to come forward. And the situation now is that the House is in recess, subject to call of the chair, and that the next thing that they will do is begin the process. You remember in January when we did this, it was 15 rounds before we finally got Speaker McCarthy. And to get that deal, McCarthy said to those who were a little nervous about choosing him that he would allow a change in the House rules so that one person could come forward and call for a vacation of the chair. It was his way of saying to those who had some concerns about him, give me a chance, and if I don't meet your expectations, then you'll only one person can come to the floor and demand that the chair be vacated, and there will be a vote on it. Well, that's what happened today. The vast majority of the Republican conference voted to keep McCarthy. 8 members voted against, and because the margins are so slim, and because you need a majority of those present and voting, you have to you don't have very many votes that you can lose. And in a perfect situation, with all 435 members voting, he could afford to lose about 5 votes before he would have been ousted. So very thin margins. Really a tightrope that the Speaker has been walking for some time now, because, anytime somebody gets a little irritated and seems like, there's no way that you can run the House of Representatives and give everybody all the things they want all the time when they want them. And so it's pretty, certain that at some point somebody's going to get irritated enough to go down to the well of the floor and call for the speakership to be vacated. And that's what happened today with Matt Gaetz. And he found 7 other people who agreed with him. That was enough to remove Speaker Kevin McCarthy from his office. And again, as I said, he's expecting to speak here in just a few moments. They have set up a podium and flags in what is called the Speaker's lobby, just outside the Speaker's office, which is just off the floor of the House. And we are waiting now for the Speaker to come. We will take that as soon as it happens. We'll get right to it. So in the meantime, why don't we go ahead and do the news with Mac Morey? Let's call it 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We interrupt Mac Morey's newscast there. Speaker of the House, former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, now speaking at the podium.
Happy conservative. But I've always believed that I've been so fortunate to be an American. My journey to this office was something people wouldn't understand. I grew up in a town of Bakersfield, California, the son of a firefighter, the grandson of immigrants. Parents worked hard, the youngest in my family. Didn't have great wealth. When I got out of high school, I didn't have great grades. Couldn't get a scholarship, went to community college. Flipped cars to try to pay my way through it. Went to visit some buddies. away to college for a weekend, stopped at the grocery store to cash a check, and I won the lottery. One of the first in California. It was before Biden economics. It was only 5,000, but it went much further back then. Took my folks to dinner, put the majority of the rest of the money into the stock market, and did pretty well. The next semester, I took a break from school. I went to buy a franchise, but no one said they would sell me one. I was only 20 years old. But I learned then never to give up. So I opened my own business, selling sandwiches. 3 things I learned. First to work, last to leave, last to be paid. I wanted to finish my college degree. At that time, no one in my family had finished a 4-year degree. I did pretty well. I now had enough money that I could pay my way through school as long as I went to Cal State. So I sold my business, going to school. I opened up the local paper and said, be a summer intern in Washington, D.C. with my local congressman. I did not know this man, but I thought he'd be lucky to have me, so I applied. And you know what he did? He turned me down. But you want to know the end of the story? I got elected to a seat I couldn't get an internship for. I ended up being the 55th Speaker of the House. One of the greatest honors. I loved every minute. And the one thing I will tell you is, doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it is necessary. I don't regret standing up for choosing governance over grievance. It is my responsibility. It is my job. I do not regret negotiating. Our government is designed to find compromise. I don't regret my efforts to build coalitions and find solutions. I was raised to solve problems, not create them. So I may have lost a vote today, but as I walk out of this chamber, I feel fortunate to have served the American people. I leave the speakership with a sense of pride, accomplishment, and yes, optimism. From the day I entered politics, my mission has always been to make tomorrow better than today. I fought for what I believe in, and I believe in this country of America. My goals have not changed. My ability to fight is just in a different form. You need 218. Unfortunately, 4% of our conference can join all the Democrats and dictate who can be the Republican Speaker in this House. I don't think that rule is good for the institution, but apparently I'm the only one. I believe I can continue to fight, maybe in a different manner. I will not run for Speaker again. I'll have the conference pick somebody else. I hope you realize that every day I did the job, regardless whether you underestimated me or not, I wanted to do it with a smile. I grew to enjoy you, even on your toughest days and your questions. I could always tell what day it was based upon your question. Monday, you would ask if I could pass the bill. Tuesday was whether the rule would pass. Wednesday was the greatest challenge ever to my speakership. And Thursday, when we passed the bill, you didn't think it was a very big deal. And it all started again on Friday. You know, I wouldn't change a thing. I do believe, I got a new portrait in there too of Teddy Roosevelt. You all know the man in the arena, one of my favorite parts of it, who errs, who comes up short again and again, but there is no effort without error and shortcoming. Who spends himself in a worthy cause, who knows the triumph of high achievement, and if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. I always like to take a risk. Saturday, I took a risk for the American public. Regardless what anybody says, no one knew whether that would pass. The Democrats didn't want that bill. Yes, they pull a fire alarm. Yes, they do their conga line. Yes, they wanted to delay. But it was all for the American people. I could not look the troops in the eye and say I would not pay them. For those who spoke on the floor, I thank them for their positive talks. I don't know what those who voted against and said there was some deal, they were never a part of any deal. For those who said about what we accomplished, I'm proud of what we accomplished. From the Parents' Bill of Rights to our energy bill, But if they want to hold me liable because the Senate didn't take it up or the president didn't take it up, that's politics, for what I know. But the one thing I do know, this country is too great for small visions of those 8. To any child that are listening and who are coming to visit the Capitol, this is a place I want you to visit. I liked opening the Capitol back up again. I liked taking away the metal detectors. I liked committees being able to work. I liked people being able to visit. I hope you liked being able to be back in. I think it was important that members actually show up to work as well. You know, to paraphrase Lou Gehrig, he said, I might have been given a bad break, but I truly still consider myself to be the luckiest man on the face of the earth. There's no other country that you could rise to be the 55th Speaker, not get an internship, and be able to fight for the American public. So it was my greatest honor to be able to do it. I love my conference well. I love to be able to ability. I've been a part of the leadership team for quite some time. We won 2 majorities. As leader, I'm proud of the fact we only gained races, only gained seats. I'm proud of the fact as a Republican leader, we elected more women. We elected more minorities. We expanded the base. I'm proud of the fact that for the 5 years I had leader, 2 election cycles, we gained 5 more seats in California, 5 more in New York. We won in places no one thought we could win. The same thing, you would underestimate me. You always said we'd lose each time around. We kept gaining. I intend to make sure that we gain and keep the majority in the next cycle as well. With that, I look forward to your positive questions. Yes. Oh, I'll look at that.
You still obviously command a lot of loyalty within the conference. We've heard you say approximately 10,000 times that you never give up. So I'm wondering, why not? Why did you make the decision not to put your name forward again and try to grind it out like you did when you won the job in the first place?
You know, you need 218 for the rule, 218 to move forward. And I'll never give up on the American people. That doesn't mean I have to be Speaker to do what I have to do for the American people. There's a lot of things I could do for the American people. But you know what's interesting? Everybody's sitting there. In today's world, if you're sitting in Congress and you took a gamble to make sure government was still open, and 8 people can throw you out as Speaker, and the Democrats who said they wanted to keep government open, I think you've got a real divide. I think you've got a real institutional problem. Interesting, it was in this room after we had won the majority, I hadn't become Speaker last, and Nancy Pelosi came to me. She was Speaker at the time on the way out. And I told her I was having issues with getting enough votes. And she said, what's the problem? I said, they want this one person can rule you out. She was the only Speaker to have changed that rule. I had the power to call the vote on her, but I never would. I lost some votes because of it. And she said, just give it to him. I'll always back you up. I made the same offer to Boehner and same thing to Paul, because I believe in the institution. I think today was a political decision by the Democrats. And I think the things they have done in the past hurt the institution. When they just started removing people from committee. And they just started doing the other things. And my fear is the institution fell today. Because you can't do the job if 8 people, you have 94% or 96% of your entire conference, but 8 people can partner with the whole other side. How do you govern? And for them to make a motion on me because I made a decision for the country that they agreed with, but they choose to do the other, that becomes a problem. Yes, sir.
So, one, are you planning on endorsing a successor to you? And then
I might.
Huh?
I might.
You might.
Yeah.
Who would that be?
I don't know who's running yet.
Okay.
I'll talk to people.
And when you look back, is there anything you could have done differently to what those 8 members?
Yeah, a lot of them I helped get elected, so I probably should have picked somebody else.
What if the 200 don't give up on you? I see Jim Banks here. There's others that really support you.
You know, we
nominated again. If you keep getting nominated, will you say
you know, I love these 200. They've gone through so much. They're down in the conference. They want me to. They'll say they're going to keep voting for me. I think you should put the country first. You know, this job was never about me. I hope you felt that I always felt, what can we do best to move forward? I mean, I treated Hakeem the way I wanted to be treated. I'd tell him things we were doing throughout, so he never was questioned. I wanted to bring the body back differently. We created a select committee on China. I changed the Intel committee. They just came back from MIT where they all had bipartisan briefing on AI and quantum. Started doing briefings with AI, the whole conference of Republicans and Democrats alike. We're far from solving that problem, but I'm proud of what we were able to do there. So we'll continue. Yes.
Well, that's Kevin McCarthy speaking in the Speaker's lobby for perhaps the last time, talking about what it was to be the 55th Speaker of the House, also lamenting the fact that he had 96% of the Republican caucus behind him, but it was 4% of the caucus that was able to take him out as Speaker of the House. He says he's not interested in running for the speakership again, that he can serve in other ways. A remarkable day of events in the House of Representatives as Speaker Kevin McCarthy is ousted by 8 members of his own conference. It really comes down to the votes of 8 people that caused what has happened here today. And so there'll be much more to talk about here in the next day or two, as they begin to try to figure out who will be the 56th Speaker of the House of Representatives. You're listening to The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let me tell you about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Dr. Kevin Mitchell is the doctor there. He's my doctor. He can be your doctor as well. Here's the number. Call, set up an appointment, 615-246-5009. Listen, they got some specials going on right now. If you are in pain, this is the time to take them, and don't put it off any longer. If you have pain in your back, your neck, your arms, your leg, if you have this thing called, neuropathy, where you have a tingling in your extremities, this is the time to try to do something about that. He's got half off spinal decompression treatments. This is a therapy that can be good for many of those things. Half off the KT knee machine as well. It's sort of like spinal decompression, but for your knee. And if you have tingling, numbness, weakness, back pain, disc bulging, disc herniation, spinal stenosis, take advantage of their offer for new patients. $23. For that, you'll get, an examination, a consult, x-rays if needed. You can bring in your own MRI or x-rays if you have them, and your charge for new patients will only be $23. And then you'll get half off spinal decompression, half off the KT machine. Dr. Mitchell is a nation's leader in spinal decompression. 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com. Let me tell you, if I could, about Everseal. What is Everseal, first of all? Well, it's a sealant for exterior wood and concrete. That sounds like, well, okay, I've done that. No, not like this. You see, this was used for ages in industrial applications, but it was the folks over at Everseal who figured out a way to provide this permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and, well, business owners could actually afford. It starts with a deep cleaning. They come in and they clean your wood or your concrete, and they make it look as good as it possibly can look. And then they use this patented sealant, which will absorb all the way through your wood and concrete. It doesn't just lay on top. It doesn't just stick to the surface. It actually becomes a part of your wood and concrete and will prevent the further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. Think about all the money you'd save. Think about all the time you would save. This sound like something you'd be interested in? Why don't you check in with Steve Nelson and the team over at Everseal, 1-844-EVER-USA. That's 1-844-EVER-USA. Learn more at ever-seal.com. Well, what a day it has been. And listen, first of all, let me say to Mason Fleming, great job today at filling in for Chris Webber on a day where it was hard to know exactly what was going to happen, and we had to fly by the seat of our pants. I really appreciate the job you put in there, Mason. Thank you so very much.
I appreciate it, Brian. That means a lot coming from you.
Great job by Mac Morey today, as he was also flying by the seat of his pants, and we were doing our very best to keep up with the very interesting and changing moment-by-moment situation on Capitol Hill. So what happens next? Well, Democrats and Republicans are in conference right now. The Democrat could be a pretty short meeting. We all vote for Hakeem Jeffries. Boom, that's the end of that meeting. Gavel it out, and you go about your business. But for Republicans, it's a much more difficult thing. After 8 members voted to oust McCarthy, they are not going to be found in favor with the 94%, 96% of the caucus that wanted to support him. So what is needed is a Speaker of the House who can stand in the midst of this fray between Republicans who are fighting among themselves and bring unity to the House of Representatives. Who is that person? Who will be the person that rises? McCarthy says he's out. He says, I'll go back to being a member of the House from California, but I will not run for Speaker again. Is there another person out there who could do it? Steve Scalise's name has risen. There are a lot of people who like Mark Green here from Middle Tennessee, and his name may come up. The other thing you need to know is in the House of Representatives, you don't have to be a member of the House to become the Speaker of the House. It's one of the weird things that's, about the House of Representatives. It's never happened that they've gone to the outside to find a Speaker, but it could happen. Some people have said, okay, give it to Donald Trump. Don't think that's going to happen. I think Donald Trump has other ideas in mind about where he wants to be in the days going forward. But one way or the other, remarkable history made today in the House of Representatives, as for the very first time in the history of that institution, the Speaker of the House was ejected, was kicked out of office. The seat was vacated, and it probably all really began last January when the current speaker said, okay, if you'll vote for me, I'll allow any one person to go to the well of the floor and call for a motion to vacate the speakership. That's exactly what happened today. Matt Gaetz did that today. 7 other Republicans went with him, and that was enough to have Matt Gaetz removed as the 55th Speaker of the House of Representatives. The big question now, who will be the 56th Speaker? And how long will it take? January? 15 rounds to get McCarthy. Will we go another 15 rounds? Will it go longer? One thing is certain, nothing can happen in the House of Representatives. Nothing can go forward in the House of Representatives until a new speaker is chosen. So we'll stay over it. I'm sure you'll have the very latest details in the morning on Nashville's Morning News. It is now 54 minutes past the hour. Let me tell you about Busy Bee. Busy Bee, if you have cold AC and it's not so cold, or if you have a heating system that, in these cool nights that not really getting the job done, give them a call. Here's the number, 615-775-7833. They will buzz over to your house, and they will do everything they can to get you up and running. Listen, you might want to think about becoming a member of the Beehive Club. I am. I think it's a great value. For as little as $99, you'll get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybehvac.com.